Heyo, welcome to, well, we're calling it the Earth Jess 1 and the Earth Jess 2 show for now. Superman on Sundays. We didn't want to call it Superman Sundays, but we're still kind of searching. We've got our tag names. So I'm Earth 2 Jess. This is the original younger version of me, Earth 1 Jess. Jessica, how are you doing?
I mean, I'm here to talk about Superman on a Sunday. I love alliterations, but I also think maybe the chat is more creative than us to come up with a good name. But I'm happy to be here for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to Super Duper Sundays or
Oh,
something, but Super Duper Sundays with Earth 1 and Earth 2 Jazz. Um,
listen, I love being as corny as possible, so that sounds great to me.
okay, well, bring on the corn. Let's talk about it. We are actually we haven't spoken that much, but we have traded uh, messages back and forth, and I trusted you enough to give you my email address. So
I
because I knew I could trust a Superman fan.
listen, and when I come to your house, no, I'm just kidding.
Are you gonna steal my Superman books?
No,
Uh,
I don't know. Is that the thing I would covet most? I'd have to really think about it. Your statues are pretty boss, so it may be one of those goes missing, if anything.
I don't have any men in my collection.
That's okay.
I'm not a beefcake guy. I'm a cheesecake guy. So,
Actually, I don't own too many. I only have 2, like, nicer figures, and they're both women. I have Wonder Woman and Batwoman, so they would fit in
oh,
nicely with my gals.
okay. So they wouldn't go lonely. That's cool
No.
to know.
Mm-mm.
So, uh, I don't know if you're on loan from the Comic Slayers channel, or if I've stolen you, or if you're part of my ensemble now. But for now, we'll just say you're on loan. And
Mm.
what when do you feel like, let's just get to know Jessica a little bit better. When do you
Ooh.
feel like you really started digging Superman?
Is
Can you
this a job interview, or is this casual? Have I already
y-
got, like, a
you've
temporary gig?
already
Okay.
got the job. Yeah. You've got the job.
Superman specifically, well, my parents don't read comics, or watch a lot of science fiction and fantasy, but weirdly, we did have the 1978 Superman movie on
Ah,
VHS back in the day.
okay.
So that was probably the very first time I was ever exposed to Superman. I grew up watching a lot of the different animated, shows and movies, but the probably strongest connection or my secret origin, if you will, it's not so secret, was the day they showed Tom Welling on the WB, and they were like, "Coming in October," and I was like, "I will be there. I will be set." And, it was
Even
Smallville for sure, yeah.
yeah, even I understand that. I didn't watch the show, but I could see how I would develop a small man crush on him.
Oh, yeah, he's
Yeah, I get it.
and it was cool because, I don't know that I really had an idea of the world of comics, even watching these animated things, like X-Men: The Animated Series when I was watching as a kid. I never was like, "Oh, this comes from comic books." I just don't I was oblivious. But Superman is what made me realize, like, Smallville, those later seasons when they bring in, like, the JSA and all of
Mhm.
spoilers for, like, 20 years ago. I was like, "Oh, it's all connected," and so it also, in a way, was one of the big pushes to get into comics. It was a start and stop ordeal, but
Mhm.
Smallville was a huge part of that, so
Okay.
definitely that's
That's
my
that's
big
a
origin.
that's a good origin story. Um I've always wanted to go back to just those seasons of Smallville when like the JSA gets introduced, and I also
Yeah.
really want to see seasons 2 through whatever for Legends of Tomorrow, because
Mm.
I've heard those are done well. Um but of course I have enough things on my list for 30 years, and
Yeah.
I hopefully in the retirement home, I'll have time to watch them all, but I don't know. Someday I'll get to them, but that I like. That's a good origin story. One thing that I don't know what generation you are. I'll just say your generation had that I
Mhm.
didn't have growing up, is you had a wealth of animated shows
Yeah.
growing up. I mean, you didn't even name Batman the Animated Series, and that's one that everybody
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
says is a keystone in their childhood, and X-Men and stuff, and there was so much animated stuff going on that I can see how that would be um, more than the Marvel movies, even because you're a
Mhm.
little kid watching week after week. I can see how that'd be the hook that would bring somebody in.
Yeah, absolutely, and Superman the Animated Series is actually definitely Batman the Animated Series is, like,
Hmm.
top tier, S tier. But Superman the Animated Series is actually great depiction of Clark and Lois, especially. And the Justice League Unlimited cartoons have some of, I think, the best adaptations of different comic book arcs. So yeah, it was good TV too. Like even as an adult when I watched it, I was like, this is really good. This is well done. But yeah, DC was crushing it when I was a kid. I think that's probably why I still read more DC.
Hmm.
Because I got into that stuff younger and developed that like familiarity and nostalgia for it.
I own and I'm still going through
Yeah.
Batman the Animated Series. I'm getting closer though. I'm on season 3.
Mhm.
I also own the Superman adventures and those Justice League. I own a bunch of stuff that a bunch of DC animated universe. I
Mhm.
don't own it all, but I'm leaning towards starting to get everything I can on DVD because HBO Max has been pulling some of it. And I'm not a big fan of that. If I want to watch it, I want to watch it. So, but I'm familiar with those ones that you were talking about. And I think, and you made a good point. They stand up to when I watch Batman the Animated Series,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I can see how people like this on both levels, as a kid
Yeah.
and as an adult.
It's great. That one especially, of course, has just mind-blowing art. Like, it's so good. I have, nowhere near me, but I do have one of the cells that a friend gifted me from that show.
Oh,
It's a poison ivy cell. You can still
oh,
find them, and you can find replica cells that are just, like, really gorgeous all on their own, so absolutely.
um, okay. Well, we'll have to take a tour of your room at some point.
It's nowhere near yours, but maybe I'll take a few things out next time.
Doesn't matter. It's yours. I already want to see the poison ivy cell. So, um, let me say to people in the chat who have been so nice to tune in. Here's Remsco. How's it going? Steve can't make it, but he's looking forward to seeing it later. That's cool. YP, my man, I just sent you an email. So he sent me an amazing gift that I am going to post on Instagram
Oh,
tomorrow. I have heard Sunday posts on Instagram don't gain any traction. So whatever that means, I'll wait and just do it tomorrow.
you're so up on your influencer culture. We love it. You were saying my generation. I don't have any of that skill and prowess, none.
I'm proud to be a micro influencer.
Mm, mm,
I'll tell you this. I was talking to Lars from he's on very fine condition with me sometimes when we talk about Marvel books and stuff.
mhm.
He's the Doctor Who expert in the United States, I think.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, he publishes books about Doctor Who. Lars does, and um, yesterday a person actually I can did I delete that? It was no. They made it public, so no, that's NFL dude with his crazy. What am I doing? See, this is where I fail. I
But
maybe
you know not to post on Sundays. So, you win some, you lose some.
anyway, my viewer
Mm,
was praising Lars because he helped him with his those books helped him
mhm.
with his ADHD, his OCD, and his clinical depression.
Wow.
And he felt comfortable enough. Oh, I know. It was Muhammad. He felt comfortable enough to post that here in the
Mhm,
chat. And I sent that to Lars, and Lars
mhm.
almost he's told me he almost got into tears. He didn't even know what
Aw,
to say because Muhammad was crediting him with helping to get through things. And
yeah.
this is why I want to stay below 10,000, 10,000 or
Mm,
lower subs, because I think when you start to get up there, where very fine condition is no atmosphere for me. I do not want to
mm,
get up into the clouds like
mm.
that because everyone that watches this show, I get nothing but mostly 99.9% kind and thoughtful messages
Yeah.
about everything, about how I'm feeling. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. And I'm like, this is awesome. I really, yeah. Thanks, James. I figured out it was Muhammad, um, and this is why. I mean, YP sent me a gift. Mr. Tech sent me a gift, and I don't know what I've done to deserve it, but it's a community that I
Yeah,
really have
community.
come to love. And I
Mhm.
didn't know in 2017, I was hoping I would get 2 viewers, and they were
Mm.
probably going to be my wife and daughter. And what this has turned into is
Aw,
amazing. I really dig it.
that's
Oh,
great, and I need to see what Lars has written. I'm a Doctor Who fan,
oh, you are
so
okay.
I need
His
to I have
what
read some, but I don't know that I can think of
hi-
authors off the top of my head.
his imprint is Mad Norwegian Press.
Oh, that sounds familiar. I'll have to look it
Yeah,
up afterwards and
you
see.
can look it up now. I'm
I
going to
bet I have.
highlight. I can highlight some people and say hi to them. Here's Roboters 100. I just want to say, love anytime you cover Superman. That's all we need to have another episode. Just one person.
Mhm, that's it, we're done.
Happy Sunday to all you he dogs and she dogs. Oh, I don't, darn it. I don't have that. I got to get that video pulled up so I can always share it with. Are you familiar with what this is? The he dogs and
I
she
don't think
dogs?
so, no.
Um, it's Kim Cattrall being her most oblivious self, scatting with a bassist. And
Oh,
it is,
like a clip?
yeah, she takes herself so seriously, and it's so awful. It's so great. Oh, well, here's James, of course, madnorwegian.com. Thank you, James.
Yeah, I'm looking. I think I don't know, I can't see the author in my initial search, but the Running Through the Corridors, I don't know if that's one of them. I've read the first one of those, if it is, yeah, this looks familiar to me. That's awesome, I didn't know that.
He may have he refers to we when he's saying writing, so he may have like a
Mm,
stable of writers that write
yeah.
for his imprint. Um, so YP got me off on that tangent. Thank you, YP. Always love tangents. Pity Mods here. Nice. Here's the man. Hey now, Zykel.
Hey, Cycle.
Uh, I didn't and would not miss show like did yesterday, so sorry. It's okay, Pity Ma. I understand you have a life. Oh, here's my good buddy Mallory. How are you doing, Mallory? I'm so excited for this. Looking forward to becoming a Superman stan. Thanks to
Whoa.
you. I understand that reference as Captain
You're so
America was.
hip. What are you talking Don't post on Sundays, you know a Stan. Wow.
Well, I do have a 32-year-old daughter that
Yeah.
used to write fanfic. So,
Ooh.
and all her friends are now published authors and stuff. So I've learned stan and wait, what's the other one? To stan someone, and I'll have to think of that. The other weird stuff that for some reason I know. Hello, darlings. Hello, Max. Here's James's suggestion: Crypto's Vault
Ooh,
Super Sunday.
do love
Okay.
crypto.
Yeah, we do love crypto. That's going to lead to a comment in one of these books that we're going to talk about.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, here's Crazed Cassowary. My 2 favorite Jesses on one stream.
Hey,
Okay,
crazed.
that means that we need to do like 20,000 more shows. Just 2 comments like that.
It's my favorite crazed viewer. Yeah.
Right, if they're cassowaries. Uh, this person's in the chat.
Mm.
Hello.
Hey, Comic Slayer.
Oh, she's here. Okay. Superman. My buddy Bunk. Can't wait for this team to tackle Secret Identity coming up in the future. I feel like that's going to be I hope that's our next stream. These are both great starting places for the character. Yes, that was, I
Yeah.
think, kind of the idea. And here's Aria, of course. Good, Aria.
Hello.
Thanks for tuning in. And before I get, no, it wasn't simp. It wasn't drag them. I do know what drag them means, and I do know
Yeah.
what simp means. It was something to do with like loving a couple. I know you stan. Oh, ship.
Oh, it's like loving a couple. What does
Well,
that
yeah,
mean? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
making a couple, Kylo,
Yes, yes.
Ren, and
Yeah.
Raylo. Yeah,
Ah, okay.
I know Raylo.
Yeah. I
Uh,
don't ship that, but I love what you love.
right. Um, you you don't need to send me gifts if you really want to. I mean, you can always reach me at my email address, which is omnidogsvault2 at gmail.com. And of course, don't forget organic price books, $2 off with my code Omnidog and 5% off shipping 4 or more books together. Omnidog ship it together.
It's a good chunk of change, 5%.
It, it really is.
Mhm.
I use my own code. You better believe it. Um, yeah, Dr. Masoom, right? I had a great time on a 4-hour stream with Bunk and Bar yesterday.
I caught part of that. It did look really fun.
It was fun, and I think we'd probably still be talking if we didn't all have obligations and are
Mm.
going to bed.
Life,
Um,
lame. It gets in the way of reading and talking about books.
yes.
Hate it.
Ugh. I actually had to lie down because I had the minister at 8 o'clock to do
Oh
a
my
show, so I
gosh.
had to go rest.
Mm-mm.
Um, okay, so we've covered your origin story,
Well,
and
Jess, do you wanna share yours, though? I mean, everyone may know, but for the characters specifically, not just
oh
comics in general. Do you wanna share yours?
yeah, I don't. Mine was the only way when I was 7. I would guess I was 6 or 7, and they'd be in the drugstore on a spinner rack.
Mm,
You get Marvel and DC, and um, the DC covers popped and appealed to me more than the Marvel covers did.
hmm,
I got to be familiar enough with all the Marvel characters that I knew. I mean that was pretty early in the run of those Marvel characters, 67,
yeah.
68. For me, I think what really got me into it was I picked up comics here and there, but then what's known as Batman 66 came on the
Mhm,
air.
mhm. Yeah.
And
Adam West, Batman?
yeah,
Yeah.
that that actually, this is back when I feel like the US was kind of younger and not more innocent, but
Mm,
they could certainly not innocent, but it was smaller media wise that one
mhm.
show could actually sweep the nation. And
Yeah.
Adam West appeared on Life magazine, which was a magazine which was a periodical that was a
Mhm,
paper,
mhm,
and Life was oversized. Um, and every kid was obsessed with it, and I don't know about adults, but the I didn't get that it was campy when I was 8 years
mhm.
old or 7 years old. I All I knew it was Batman and Robin with a boss car and climbing up buildings with random people popping their heads out. I actually took it seriously as an 8-year-old, and I'll
Mhm.
never forget when I was 13, my dad picked me up from the golf course from practice. I said, "We gotta get home by 3 o'clock. Batman has started in syndication." He goes, "Okay." So we get home, and I watched the first episode, and I'm like, "What the hell am I watching?" Batman going into a bar and doing the Batusi, and, I do we s my friend and I still say to each other, "I'll have a large, fresh orange juice," to the bartender. Um but you can see, Cesar Romero's mustache under his makeup and stuff, and I was like, who made this and why? What?" Um, so I think that got me into Batman, but Superman's
Mhm,
covers, the DC cover art back then appealed to me more,
mhm,
um, than the, Marvel art, Marvel covers. The
mhm.
Marvel covers, I think, were, darker and grittier, I've come to find out, but Superman, um, as much as I love Batman, Superman's always been my favorite character.
Mm,
I just glommed onto him when I was 7 or so, and, um, I got to know, you can't explain why you end up a Marvel fanboy or DC
Mhm.
fanboy or girl.
Mhm.
Um, it just sort of happens, and I just loved the stories, and the one thing I am waiting for, I can't my most anticipated Omni is that Superman Silver Age Omni 1. I'm not
Mm.
recommending it to anyone except myself. These are gonna be the stories I grew up on,
Mhm.
and strictly for nostalgia's sake, and because I remember all those covers and all those stories, I can't wait to get it. I mean, I'll do an overview of it, but I will tell modern readers, do not expect like Alan
Mhm.
Moore Superman or anything else any other great Superman story. These are gonna be, written for 9-year-olds basically.
With, like,
Uh,
truly the craziest plots. I haven't read we talked about this, I haven't read a lot of Superman from that era, but I do own, what are they? The Showcase, black and white.
oh
You
yeah,
know what I'm like, those old
yeah.
I picked up some Supergirl ones for, Silver Age back in the day, and I still love them and read them. They have
Oh
truly the
good.
most insane plots, but
Mm.
they're fun. Like, if anything, they're, like, campy fun to be
Hmm.
I don't know how they were supposed to be read then, if they were supposed to be taken seriously. I don't think so, though. They were for children, so,
There's a
I
famous
could see that.
there's a famous quote from an editor that said of that time period. He said it back then. What we're doing is writing comics stories for 8-year-olds on the toilet. And that is what they were for. That's how they treated them. I Now fortunately, modern comics are not written that way, thank
Mhm.
goodness. I I call it the golden age of comics is now, and I really feel like
Mm.
that because you don't just have great comics from the big 2, but you've got great comics from almost all across the spectrum. And then you've got
Yeah.
kids growing up reading manga, which I can't read manga, but if they're interested in a comic and it's Japanese, that's still a comic to me, and I'm still excited for them. I think it's a great.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
so yeah, that was the mindset um, back then, um, and the books we're going to review are much different than that mindset. These are written for critical thinkers that actually still like to read comics, but are adults or I don't know, maybe mature teenagers on up. Um, but wait, let's see. Axel, Advent hasn't started. Axel, it's her place. She can decorate it any way she wants it.
Nope. I told Jess beforehand, I was like, "I know someone will drag me, but I really love Joy." And it's the same feeling when I talk about Superman. People will drag me. I really like Joy, unabashedly, so, yeah.
I think Axel's not dragging you. I think he's just lightly teasing you.
Oh, okay, okay.
Axel's not a known dragger. Um, he's referring to us as Omnidog 1 and Omnidog 2. No, I'm sure Axel. Oh, Bunk says my wife was about to leave without me to our dinner plans. We went so long. Yeah, I think Bar's sister was banging on the wall for her to shut up so she could go to sleep.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
um,
I saw the link at the end. I was like, I need to start a house project to watch this one." I only caught, like, 20 minutes live, yeah.
yeah, it went long. You're you're not a dragger, Axel. To drag someone, go ahead and explain it. What I know what it means,
Like,
but
tease or mock heavily.
I think
Yeah.
it's more mock
You
heavily.
think it's
Like,
mock?
yeah,
Okay.
I think it's mock heavily and throwing shade. You're throwing major shade at somebody
Wow.
when you drag them. That's a popular social media practice to like drag a celebrity after they tweet an out of touch photo like life is so hard my chef ruined my steak or something. Yeah, boom, yeah, they can be dragged.
I love that you've become the voice of Gen Z vocabulary. You're like, "Listen."
I I get exposed to it secondhand, I guess. This is a good
Yeah.
question. I wonder, Roboters 100 has a question about Kurt Swan's Superman design. Has anyone been able to top Kurt Swan's Superman design? Are you familiar enough with Kurt? That's Silver Age.
That's
Um, right up to whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow. Is that when I think they stopped?
Yeah, it's like
And
mid 60s to early 80s or something like that ish,
I I feel like Kurt Swan may have started. Kurt Swan was a
or
major,
earlier.
certainly a major cover artist for Superman.
Mm.
His covers for Superman are what attracted me to Superman. Um, and he did the interiors a lot for certain runs. In 70 or 71, when they actually rebooted Superman, he was the interior artist. Neil Adams was the cover artist. Um, that's the sweet spot for me for the Silver Age and Bronze Ages, 1968 to 1974, because that's when we really got um, something something more interesting than the Batman 66. Batman 66
Mm.
bled into the comics, and they were always, you know, as you said, crazy. Supergirl had
Mhm.
crazy adventures and stuff, and um, so I love Kurt Swan's Superman design. That's what I grew up on. Um, there are certainly a number of artists that draw Superman well, but that I would say he's my Superman artist. Maybe it's whenever you, I, I feel like your character is whenever you really fell in love with them,
Mm.
or the era. Like certain people's Justice League is Justice League International, and my
Mm.
Justice League is goofy Justice League from the Silver Age. So, and some people's Green Lantern is Kyle Rayner as opposed to Hal Jordan,
Mhm.
because they
Mhm.
grew up with him. So, have you seen maybe?
I just Googled like examples of the covers from that era. Yeah,
Mm,
I don't know if I think of it as the most quintessential in my brain, but the costume design, especially with the low collar here, where there's like you could see his clavicle, I guess you could say, that
clavicle,
costume
big word.
design. Listen, you got the Gen Z vocab. I'll take anatomy. Together we'll divide and conquer. Like this costume design feels the most iconic and familiar to me. But I probably couldn't say I've read enough to make a too bold a statement about the art
No, by the
overall.
time I'm
Mm.
done with you, you will.
All right. I mean, I'm willing.
That is all I need. Hey, Marcelo.
Hello.
Uh, Dozier is the one who produced the show. I always love the Dozier show for, oh, okay, Batman 66 for Frank
Mhm.
Gorshin's Riddler, and giving Bill Finger a writing credit. That is actually a
Oh.
good point.
Have you
Yeah,
watched that documentary?
I haven't. No, I
It's really
know.
good. It's very interesting.
That's what I've heard. I almost
Mm.
don't want to, because I've heard just how much suffering Bill Finger went through,
Mm.
but I know it's important, and
Yeah.
I know I should.
I don't remember it
Um,
feeling like a downer, but I mean, yes, I definitely could see what you're saying. I
okay,
think
good.
it's definitely worth it. I didn't feel depressed afterwards or anything. It
Okay,
felt kind of
okay,
hopeful,
that's
like when
good.
you read a Superman book. So,
Hopeful. Yeah.
yeah.
This was I was talking about. When did DC go from the silly end of the 60s and then more social criticism of the 70s? That Green Arrow drug issue.
Oh man, that
I
was intense.
um I Axel, that's a great question. I think that Green Lantern, Green Arrow 76 um was the start of the Bronze Age. And I believe I was 11, so I would put that in 1970. That was also the year Conan #1 came out with Barry Windsor Smith art. And so it's sort of a gray area. People have different thoughts, but
Mm.
when that Green Arrow, Green Lantern 76 showed up, and you put it together with also Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, Dick Giordano's Batman, and the rebooted Superman, who was not affected by kryptonite anymore, um, that's when we broke out of the goofiness of the 60s and
Mm.
started with socially relevant, social criticism, socially relevant. That whole run of Green Lantern, Green Arrow, I talked about it extensively on Chris Balga's podcast, and Bunk has reminded me I need to do my 5 most important comics, and that'll be one of them. That I remember I still have my copy.
Oh
Um,
wow.
Fortunately, I kept it in good shape. I sent it to CGC and it came back 8.5, which for an 11-year-old to have in that kind of shape.
Oh my gosh.
I read it 100 times. I don't know how it stayed in good shape. I kept my comics in good condition, but that's the beginning of when we left the Grasshopper Gang era of Batman and,
Mm.
Lex Luthor trying to kill Superman every 12 issues. I think that's when it started. But
That's getting an Omni, isn't it? Soon?
which one? Lex Luthor killing
That Green
Superman?
Arrow,
Oh,
Green
yeah.
Lantern, Green Arrow, like full
Yeah.
collection, I think. I have
And
some
that's gonna
trades, but not complete.
and I'm wondering what's gonna be in that. I guess we've already seen it's gonna have the backup issues in Flash that Denny O'Neil did with Mike Grell, and then it's gonna have I think they called them the space traveling heroes. That's when they do the more space cop stuff with
Mhm.
Green Lantern. I don't have those memorized like I have 76 through 90 of Green Lantern, Green Arrow memorized. But I'm definitely going to pick it up. Uh,
Yeah.
and I throw in 1968 to 74. 68's when Neil Adams started doing covers and interiors for DC. The stories were slightly better, but his art is what really
Mm.
changed everything, was that
More
Neil Adams
mature.
art. Yeah, exactly. May 71 is the cover date of Spider-Man Harry Osborn drug issue. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I haven't
Hey,
read that.
Ma. Super Friends and the Adventures of Superman with George Reeves got me into DC Comics, and I have that issue, Whatever Happened to Superman. And yes, I pre-order Silver Age Superman 2. Yes, can't
Yes.
wait.
That show is it is a fun show. I have the first season on DVD.
This is the George Reeves show.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's a good if I'm pretty sure that's correct. It's pretty fun. And then we went to there's a Metropolis, Illinois, has a
Oh.
Superman museum, which I've been twice now, and they have a
Oh.
bunch of the props from that show. At least as
Oh.
of before 2020, you could like touch the props of the show, which the geek in me was like, well, you can just touch this stuff, like it feels like it should be protected. But basically, it was someone's private Superman collection that just grew so big that they turned it into a museum. The town is like, there's nothing else to do there, obviously, but it is, if it's not too far from you or it's convenient to go there, it's actually a really neat museum. Just
I
feels
would
down home. That's the way to say it.
Yeah, I need to go there. That
Oh, I
uh,
think
that
you'd love it. Yeah.
that may be number 2 on my bucket list now.
You could
Um
you could film a vlog and don't drop it on a Sunday because nobody will watch it.
Yeah, Omnidog visits the Superman museum.
It's
Nice.
pretty awesome, yeah. They have a big in front of their courthouse, they have a huge Superman statue, and the coolest part, I think, the street in front of it, like, so the statue's, like, here, the street that's in front of it and the shop's, like, over here, the museum, it has, in the bricking of the Main Street Road, has these, squares, and it's the crest and, like, logo as it changes through time as you drive closer to the statue, which is pretty cute, it's pretty cool.
Oh my god, that sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
They've really leaned into it.
Uh-oh, here's Comic Slayer's been to Metropolis and I haven't. Whoa.
But you haven't gone to the museum yet, right, Kristen? I don't think so.
Did you go to Metropolis to see Oliver Treehouse or Keegan Peele and Sarah or somebody? I don't know that I hate those space adventures, Marcello. I think as a kid, I didn't appreciate the artwork because it took a serious drop off for me um, when Neil Adams and Dick Giordano left and Mike Grell took over. But I if Denny O'Neil's still writing it, I still think it's worth reading. And um, even though they were backup features, I mean, I'm going to give it a shot. I definitely want to find out. It's a thick omnibus, and
Hmm.
it's going to have probably a lot of stuff I actually haven't read. So that's one reason I want to check it out. Okay, so you have a spoiler. That's the one issue for the challenge. I have to figure out what the other 4 would be, my most important comics. I only have a billion to choose from.
I was gonna say, I don't know why you did that to yourself, but you're a
I
better man than us, I guess. Good
I
luck.
have I
Godspeed.
haven't really. I haven't. Well, I said I accepted it, but I accepted the challenge back in like May or June, and
Mhm.
clearly I haven't done it yet.
Mhm.
There's regular time, and then there's Omnidog time.
Mm. Cycle has strong words about
Yes, he
Metropolis,
does.
Illinois.
A fraudulent tourist trap. True, you can come to Cleveland and see the birthplace of Superman, the Siegel. This what is it? The Siegel House, or the Schuster House? There's a plaque and everything. Yeah,
Is there a museum there though? Because like I would definitely go to do that, but I didn't know if is there like a museum or just a plaque that's like,
yeah. What's
here's the
every
place.
in this? You see, there's a plaque and everything. So
We
what's
need,
everything? Is
yeah,
there a Superman
clarify.
restaurant? I mean, let's have a Superman restaurant somewhere.
That would be cool.
That would be eating kryptonite dessert or something.
That
Um,
would be a tourist trap, but they can have my money.
yeah. So, which book would you like to start with that we talk about? I didn't make any slides or anything, so we can just show the artwork.
Yeah,
My
sounds good.
first impression, of course, is the artwork is super strong in both issues, but
Ooh.
um, hot take
We'll
already. Oh,
see. We'll see. It's a tepid take. It's tepid. I
tepid
think
take.
it's hard. I'll bury the lead and say I like Birthright a lot more than I like Secret Origin. I like them both, obviously. But
I,
Birthright
I
did come first. So there's an argument for either, but maybe start with Secret Origin. I don't know. What do you think?
argument for either as to which is the better book.
Which to start talking about first?
Oh,
Yeah. What do
sure.
you
We can
think?
talk about Secret
Yeah.
Origin first. This is the one where I think where Gary Frank first started doing sort of his homage to Christopher
Christopher
Reeve.
Reeve. Hmm.
Yeah, where he has. I'm gonna have to turn my away from the mic. Where he has Superman looking just like Christopher Reeve, and I have to be honest. While I thought that was really cool at first when I read it,
Hmm.
it it kind of got to me. Um, it didn't. I'm not saying it bummed me out, but I felt like it kind of pulled me out of the story a little bit because he
Oh.
looked so much like Christopher Reeve. I was like, is this a Christopher Reeve story or a Superman story? So, and and then it sort of shows that iconic moment in the Superman
Hmm.
78 movie. It didn't detract really
Mm.
from the writing, um, but I did keep saying to myself, "Gee, that looks like Christopher Reeve a lot."
I liked that part of it, but and why I say like I don't think the art is necessarily my I'm trying to find the example is the children in this book are drawn in quite a scary way. I'll just show you I want to show you Lana in her impression of Children of the Corn. Let me try to find that one image. But yeah, he is Christopher Reeve on a child's head on a child's body. Even you can kind of even see it here. That part I didn't think worked quite as well, but I actually
Right?
liked there was a charm about like let's go back to the basics, you know what I mean? And use this
Yeah.
character. Here's another example of like his uh childhood. But where is my Lana Children of the Corn? Do you know what I'm talking about? Did that stand out to you?
I I remember. Well, I remember
Oh, here
they
she is.
kept making out in his heat vision too. Oh, where she's hiding from him. Yeah, she does.
She's a little
eh,
scary in that one, but I
Yeah,
think the faces worked better for me as they were adults. I didn't notice as many moments, but
yeah.
when they were kids, I was like, "Whoa."
Lex is the teenager here.
Yeah.
Yikes.
That one I'll give grace to. There's actually a panel, I'll try to find it when we get to Birthright, where Lex also suddenly ages like 20 years in one depiction where he's supposed to be a teenager. But that one, I'm like, well, he's supposed to be a little scary. You know, that's
Yeah.
fine. But Lana's supposed to be like fearful, and instead, I am terrified of what's going to emerge from the from the cornfield, which she gets out.
I like the touches in this book. First of all, this is a good. This is the story of Clark Kent. It's got what makes both stories, I think, work is that they
Mhm.
give as much story to Clark Kent becoming Clark Kent as they do Superman finding his way as Superman, and
Mm.
um, the duality there and how it gets established. I think the rationale for it sort of, I feel like, pops out more in Superman Birthright, but as far as this book being a good place for anybody not familiar with Superman to start, it it starts. I think it's a great place for people to start if they haven't um, already started read. If they want to get into Superman, it shows. It definitely, it shows the famous meeting between the Legion of Heroes um, from 30 the 30th century,
Mhm.
um, and I liked how they did that. It shows Lois and Jimmy and Perry White at their written really well, and Lex getting ready to try and bankrupt the try to bankrupt all the papers by all his lawsuits, and then Lex being the he's all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, he's made himself into one of the wealthiest men on the planet, considered the smartest man on the planet, and then this hayseed from Smallville, alien from Krypton, comes in to try and steal his thunder. And there's a page in here where Les says, "This means war,"
Mhm.
and he starts to wage war on Superman. Um,
Yeah, both of these books, part of why we chose them, I think, too, and not like Secret Identity, which I'm also excited to get to, um, is they're both like straight retellings in a sense of the origin. There's nothing Elseworlds about them. They're like, okay, let's tell a self-contained story over again, but through the lens of whichever era the book came out in, which these didn't come out too far apart from each other, honestly, which is really interesting when you read them back to back. Especially the similarities they have in what they chose to keep in their retelling. One of them you just kind of alluded to, which is the idea of Lex being in Smallville for varying amounts of time. In Secret Origin, he's not there for super long, no pun intended. They don't cross over quite as much. But in Birthright, there's like a huge, which we'll get to, plot point where they overlap. But both retellings chose to do that, which is part of going back to Smallville. The appeal for me of the show is I think Smallville made Lex Luthor and that dynamic have a lot more depth for me as like a story consumer. But it is interesting when you read these back to back to see like which elements of the retelling, sort of a straight retelling of the origin, do each of them keep. This one did feel like you were describing, it felt like an appetizer sampler of Superman, maybe more than it did like a cohesive story for me. I think Birthright was a bit more cohesive.
mhm.
But yeah, I think it gave good snapshots of each era and added new stuff. Like it's not always, I don't think, in the origin, like with the Legion of Superheroes, that essentially he trains to be Superman before he is Superman, in an era where Superman existed. Like that
Right.
timey-wimey piece isn't always a part of the story.
That's a Doctor Who reference. I
There you
recognize
go.
that.
So it's interesting to see what the writers chose to put in too, like what they in what is in supposed to be a straight retelling, right? Versus
Mhm.
like Secret Identity and some others that I'm sure we'll talk about are in a Elseworlds in a sense.
Yeah.
So
Um,
definitely interesting.
Chris says Secret Origin is more of Jeff Johns' homage to Richard Donner, who he worked with for years, becoming a comic writer. Um, and let's see. Bunk, did you see this big Superman exhibit the Cleveland Public Library had some years ago? Nope. I went to a few of the Superman events that CPL sponsored this last fall, like the PKJ signing at Carol and John's, but no exhibits at Cleveland Public
Public library.
Library. I've seen the Superman statues at the airport plenty of times, though.
Oh,
Oh,
I've never flown into Cleveland. That's kind of cool. Now maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll
I,
try to find
I
a path. I don't
that's
know.
that's relatively new to me. I have
Uh-huh.
on my mom's side lots of relatives in Cleveland, so I went
Mhm.
there all the time up until my mom's brother and sister passed away in the early 2000s. So I don't think I've been back to Cleveland since 2007. So I wonder if I don't remember Superman statues, but maybe I just looked at him and said, "Oh, that's cool," and just kept walking for my luggage. I will say there's one. The only thing I enjoyed this, it did feel like a little bit of Superman light, but it's a great
Mhm.
introduction to it.
Yeah.
This was a tease, and I need to call it out because this shouldn't be. We should see more of this, and that's when the next Kryptonian ship arrives, and you hear an "arf" from it.
Oh, yeah.
And then where's the dog? Where is Crypto? What is this? I mean, come on. He sees another ship come and he's excited that it's from Krypton and it's obviously got his dog in it, the greatest dog in comics. Shut up, all you Lockjaw fans. How wh- why don't we have at least a couple pages of him playing fetch with Crypto? I was just like, what? It doesn't even we don't even see Crypto again except for like a cover. That
Yeah,
uh,
for an appetizer of a book where they really coulda just added something else in there because it's not this total through line story, it is cheating, I feel, absolutely,
oh,
and
I mean, I was very unhappy with this. Very unhappy. Otherwise, I really like this book. And I think it's a good one for people to read. And um I will never argue with Gary Frank art or Jeff Johns writing. They wrote one of my favorite Batman stories, Batman Earth One. Um, and
Mm.
I I don't know. I have no problem with loving this book and keeping it in my collection, going back to it every few years and reading it. I think that's what's great about this show is it's gonna make me go back and read all my favorite Superman stories. Um, but yeah, on a I don't know, on a scale of I don't know, do you want to rate it or just say that it's a great introductory book? If we rate it, I'd rather rate it out of 10 stars rather than 5
Oh,
stars because I don't think there's enough nuance in a 5-star rating.
listen, I agree, and that's why I do quarter stars and half stars, which the comic slayer does not love. But I'm like 4.25, 7 point whatever. Yeah,
I
I could do
I
that.
do that in my Goodreads. If I give it a 3, I'll say in the comments, this was really more of a 3.5
Mhm. Oh, yeah,
because
I think that's
wasn't
totally
good
fair.
enough to be a 4, but a 3 seems a little harsh, but it was a 3.5, and that's good enough to stay in
Mhm.
my collection.
Well, I think things that I think worked better in this one, and I can do out of 10 for sure. But like things, if I'm comparing the two, which isn't the main point, but that's sometimes
Right.
helpful to see how well each is done. I really think the Jonathan and Martha, but especially the Jonathan Kent stuff with Clark in this book is better and stronger. And to me, one of the most interesting things about Superman is this dynamic that shows up both in his relationship with Lex and this like I was gonna say who's your daddy moment, but I know that will be taken out of context. The dad father figure. So like, at the father figure situation, it's like he gets these in a sense, not I mean, he gets it from the son, but you know what I mean? In a way, he gets the capacity to have powers by being Kryptonian, and he's got this Jor-El and how much of Jor-El is in him or Kryptonian culture, etc. But he's also got this nature versus nurture thing where Jonathan instills like what to do with those powers through the installation of morals. And then when Superman's relating to Lex, Superman is a godlike figure in a sense that is just trying to be human or see humanity in himself always. And then Lex is a human who's usually trying to be a bit godlike. And so
Oh,
I like those, parallels that go through. And so when the any one of those parallels is done well, it really stands out to me. It's something I like to think about and explore. And in this book, I think there's just more with Jonathan. Like I get that perspective. And maybe because in this version, none of these are major spoilers if you know the basics, but in this version, he sees the message from Jor-El while Jonathan and Martha are around, and he sees it kind of younger. Whereas it's a little different in Birthright, the situation in which he comes to a little bit more information about Krypton.
right.
And so it sets up that dichotomy stronger if right from an early age he's got these sort of two, father figures that he's looking towards in a sense. So I think the Jonathan stuff is better here. I think the Daily Planet stuff sings really well in both, but I actually
Mhm.
really loved that introductory scene. There's so much comedy
Mm.
in the in both of them, but in this one as well, I I definitely am thinking of the scene where General Lane gets involved and John Corbin comes and he's got the hots for Lois
Yeah.
and he's like pinning her in her cubicle.
Yeah.
And Clark, instead of like trying to show him up like some big man, just sort of shakes his hand and is like aggressively nice, but but squeezing the life out of his hand. That was so funny to me. So I think the Daily Planet, I think I have that one. Yeah. The
It
Daily
was
Planet stuff just like sings for me in this one more. But I
there's a
think
lot of it.
there's less of a story, I think, in this one. And I didn't love some of the I don't know if I would have chosen some of the like Parasite. I don't know if I would or made like fat jokes about Parasite. I probably wouldn't have done that if I could pick out of anything to be like, here's the origin. You know what I mean?
Mm. Mhm.
Um, but I agree that it's solid. I agree that it's an appetizer. And, not just for longtime readers to pull off the shelf, but I actually do think we're getting to a point where Superman's been so quote unquote like out of fashion with mainstream that like kids know more these days about Spider-Man and Batman
Mm.
probably.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it may actually be fresh for some of them because we haven't had a actually tried and true Superman retelling in quite a while. So where this might be a bit repetitive at times for some folks who are like, yeah, kind of in the middle on the character. I think if you're a kid, this actually some of this can be brand new to you in a way that wasn't true 20 or 30 years ago. I don't think. Um, I don't know. Do you feel that way? You're
Um
so hip with the younger generations.
Yeah, since I already stand Superman,
Hmm.
um, what I love well, first of all, that was a really well-spoken critique and, acknowledgement of the dichotomy
Mm,
between Superman trying to be human and Lex trying to be a god. That
mm.
is an important point that I hadn't picked up on, and why you are perfect for this channel. That's why I have smart co-hosts.
Well, I got nothing better to do with my time than think about comics.
Good. Just sit around and think about comics. That's all
Yeah,
I need
yeah.
you to do.
Mhm.
And I love that this image is silent.
Yes.
There's nothing but just Clark smiling and John Corbin
Mhm.
getting his hand broken practically when he is clearly a bully, John Corbin. And I, the one thing about Lois,
Mm.
I, I, I do love Lois's depiction in this. Anytime I get a strong female protagonist, and that's what she is, I like it. I'm not
Mhm.
100% sure I like how her face was drawn. It was a
Oh,
little the sort of Anya Taylor-Joy eyes on her, and I say that as an Anya Taylor-Joy. I stand for Anya Taylor-Joy. I ship me and Anya Taylor-Joy, so I don't have any
wow.
issue with it. But a lot of the characters, I, you know what? It's all the characters. Like Jimmy Olsen here, he's got not Betty Davis eyes, but some
Yeah.
other kind of eyes. They're a little widely spread, and that's just sort of a small criticism of it. But
No,
that
yeah, throughout this whole book, that's my one issue. Actually, I don't know. We can talk comparison of art later, I guess, maybe more in depth. But in general, art here, I think is strong. Like that's where
yeah
I wasn't totally agreeing in the beginning. I think the faces are the problem for me in here. And sometimes they work really well. They're
yeah
exactly capturing. But sometimes they're either just weird or kind of a mismatch with the dialogue. I actually noticed a couple mismatch moments in Birthright as well. Not a ton, but a few where I was like, the face is saying something different than I'm kind of taking away from the
oh
writing. But in general, I actually really do love the line work, especially in
yeah
this, faces
hmm
aside. It's like just the right amount of detail and it has some sharper edges. But for me, I do like, I mean, I'm an all seasons gal, so I love a soft line. When it
yeah
comes to Superman, I think it fits the like iconicism, right? Or like soft lines also indicate like kindness, etc. Whereas like really harsh lines sometimes don't quite work for the story. This Gary Frank stuff, it does get the balance, I think, right overall. It's just the faces are off sometimes. And of course, the horrifying Children of the Corn children in the first issue. There's enough funny and cute stuff with the Kents in the first issue that you're like, all right, the face is weird, but I'm gonna shrug it off. It
I
happens.
love the Children of the Corn reference, and I love that you say you're an all seasons gal. That should be underneath your name, an all
Oh yeah,
seasons
that's a good one.
gal. That's
I'm
awesome.
excited to talk about that eventually,
I
I have
am
to say.
too. I am too.
Yeah.
I haven't read it in so long that it's going to be a brand new read for me again.
This one also, I was just looking at pages I tabbed real quick. All of them have the homage to Action Comics number
Oh
one
yeah.
with a car lifting, but it's interesting that both of them did it a little out of sync with the timeline. So this one is happening in the Legion of Superheroes timeline in the future that moment happens. And then the other one also has one that's, a little twist on it, but both have those homages, which I think is cute in an origin. Like, I think it's a nice
I
little wink.
agree. It's a nice, yeah, it's a nice Easter egg. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
If I was
overall
you,
out of 10
yeah,
for you?
8.
So I gave it a 3.75 out of 5 on Goodreads. So it's not
Okay.
very far. Maybe like a 7 and some change. Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
7.3.
like I said, something like that.
I don't mind if you carve up your stars. You can do it in millimeters if you want, or Celsius. I don't care.
It's like a 7. I would say it's maybe like a 7.5. I don't know if it actually equals that math wise because that's not my specialty, but I think if it had a better through story and switched up the villains, could have been bumped up. And then, yeah, the face holds it back. But I totally agree. It's a great book to hand someone who isn't familiar with the character, which again is, I think, happening in 2023 in a way it didn't before.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. It's a fun one to revisit. It's a nice palate cleanser. And I do like John's writing overall on pretty much everything I've read. So I'm never going to not read one of his books. So, yeah.
Let me just ask for future reference. Have you, I assume you have read and loved Super Sons?
Oh,
okay.
yes.
That's the only reaction I needed.
I own version 2 of the Omni. I don't know what we're on now. Are we on version 8
We're
of
on
the Omni?
we're on Super Duper, which is volume 3
This is
or release
wild.
3. I'm trying myself to figure out what I should do. I have the first Super Sons and the 3 trades, and I'm like, should I really I know this is a first world problem, but should I really upgrade when the stories are the same? I have the stories. And then the other, then the devil on my shoulder is like, yeah, but you don't have them in an omnibus, dude. You could have all of it in an omnibus. And then the angel says, and what happens when volume 4 comes out of the trade? What are you
No.
going to do then, smart guy? So
you can't win for trying on collecting that one, but it's so good. Whatever version you own, it's good.
yeah,
It's
oh
fine.
yeah, it's so fun. That is the definition of fun. I can't wait for us to review that.
Yeah, it was cool in Secret Origin. The young Clark, is particularly thinking about the underwear, the underwear line in this one, where his mom is talking about his underwear, and she's like, "You do have underwear on underneath." He's like, "Yeah, I do." And I just thought, like, that's a John Kent. Like, it was when I know that obviously they're written in totally different timelines, but I'm just thinking, like, yeah, I see your son in you in these moments, and that was kind of cute too.
Alon's happy.
Ilan is a faithful viewer of both summer reading program and fall into reading, a valued member of the community. Yes, good to see you.
Wow, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Lars says, my favorite Lex story is the unauthorized biography written by James D. Hudnall. I don't think I've read that.
Yeah, that's the one I think. Let me look up that has the really iconic cover that I'm thinking of. That's a parody. Am I right about that, Lars?
I don't think I've read that. Isn't Lockjaw a regular person in a dog's body? I don't know. He looks like a big dog to me. A regular person. He looks like a dog with a tuning fork on his head. I thought he was. I'll tell you one thing I can't wait for us to talk about is Supergirl and her relationship with Comet. Are you familiar with
Oh
Comet's
yeah.
origin and everything
Yes,
and how
yes.
weird that all is?
That's so weird. Yes.
it didn't hit me when I was a kid. I was just like,
Mhm.
okay, cool. And now I look
Mhm.
back and I go, wow, what? There's so much going on in there.
There's so many things where it's like, maybe don't think about it too much. Maybe just be like, "Okay, it's
Yeah,
fine."
we veer into Catherine the Great territory there for a second. It's kind of odd. Um, Elon, your super
Oh.
fan, says I have not read any Superman or really adore the first film from the 70s.
Mm.
Which book should I read that has a similar vibe to that film? Well, that would be this.
It would probably be this, yeah.
You should start with this then. This is an homage to that
Or
film, as was pointed out. Um, eh, it's an homage to that film, the Richard Donner film. So, or what were you going to say?
I was thinking, Superman 78 is, like, also isn't that what it's called? They did the
Oh,
Batman
with
66, Superman 78.
it's Batman 89 with
80
Superman 78. Yeah.
78, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
And,
haven't I haven't read that yet. Oh, let's see. I have not read it, but you could check out the Superman
yeah,
78 miniseries. Okay, Lars, yeah.
that one
This
and also a little bit of an extension from this one is Superman Last Son of Krypton, which is
mhm.
also John's. It actually I think this is the one that has a foreword that links it directly to the Donner film in a
I
lot of ways.
I feel like Donner had a hand in writing that too. What does it say on the
Yep,
front?
yep.
Yeah,
So there you go.
yeah.
And more Gary Frank, maybe you can get some cool faces.
This is
There's a couple
also a
artists
good
in this
book
one.
to start with if you
Yeah,
love the movie.
yeah. This is a bit more of a plot. It also has Supergirl in it, but I think origin-wise, Secret Origin makes the most sense. But that could be another place you go after Secret Origin if you're interested.
I'll have to look up the unauthorized biography. It's probably in my library, but I don't know. I don't. It doesn't. I don't recognize.
Did you
Wait.
look up the cover though?
Yeah. Let me do that right now.
Once you see the cover, you know it's a parody of The Art of the Deal by a former president. Do
That
you
one.
remember? Yeah, you can see it when you close your eyes. I remember.
He's very heavy in that picture, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. I do know
Yeah.
that one. I don't think I have that. I have the Joker and Luther by Azzarello.
Mm.
Those two separate books. I I don't know that I ever felt strongly enough about, after 58 years of hating Luther and the Joker, I don't know that I really want to read any more of them. I understand their importance. Um, but I am I don't know if it's that good, then okay, yeah, I'll read it. If you actually if you say I should read it, then I will read it. Do you think I should read it?
No, I haven't read it. I just was
Oh,
laughing because I remembered the cover. I just think
oh,
it's, like,
okay.
one of the funniest, like, trolling covers I've ever seen in my entire life.
Ah, the Unstoppable Bar is here, and she's
Hey,
excited to see
Bar.
you.
I'm
What
excited to
earth
see her.
Jess am I? Well,
Mm,
what is Jess in Hebrew? Does it have a translation?
it's a good
Um,
question.
Je- uh, I am unfamiliar with Bar's knowledge on Superman, so we'll have to work on that. We'll find an Earth for you, Bar.
There
There's an Earth out there for you.
there
Yeah,
is an Earth out there for you. There is that one, is it Carl is it Kessel? I can't remember. There is, of course, that road trip Poison Ivy one. Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn go to Metropolis. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah.
Which one is that? I wonder if she's read that.
Oh yeah, she has. I know it's in her.
Yeah.
I know it's in her collection.
It's a soft launch start.
Yeah, the Ketzel run. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's 1 and 2. Yeah, I know she's read that.
It's a fun book. Oh, she loves Birthright.
Oh,
Maybe?
I
I don't
love
know.
Birthright. Okay, good. Just means nothing in Hebrew. Well, I just asked if there was a translation. This-
Also so intense.
yeah, wow.
Wow.
Uh, what is this guy? Um, when is this guy going to leave me alone? This very fine condition guy. Holy smoke! He just can't stop streaming. Sick of it. Well, you guys will have to have both open at the same time because ours, of course, is who wants to ask very fine condition any questions anyway? Ugh.
Mm.
You have to pay, don't you? And
So
Mallory's saying hi, Bar. Everybody loves Bar. That's for sure.
so seven-ish for both of us.
Okay. Well, I gave it an
8.
8.
8, 7 to
Yeah.
8-ish for both
7
of
to
us.
8-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. And for Birthright, how long had it been since you read this? Because I read Secret Origin for summer reading program
Oh,
this past summer with Kristen. And so I just reread it very quickly. But actually, I realized it had been a minute since I read Birthright. It had been like at least 5 years, I think.
oh, at least
Yeah.
5 years in his well, that's a good point.
Fair. Touche.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's all about who you stand more, though. So, yeah. Not to drag anyone. But.
Right. We're not trying to drag him. Birthright, I remember reading when it came out around 2001, 2002 in floppies. And then whenever this got published, it's got a signature I got from Heroes Con from Lionel Yu.
Look at that.
Lionel Yu.
Yeah.
Lionel Yu. I feel like he's the one that shared his sour gummy bears with me too. He,
Wow.
forced them on me.
You know how people press like flowers? Maybe this is, I don't know, maybe more women do this.
I'm not going to press a gummy bear in here. Is
That's
that what
what I was
you're
going to say.
saying?
Maybe you need to press a gummy bear. And then this is the gummy bear that came from his mouth.
He gave me the whole package practically. He's like, here, come on. I've had enough. Enjoy him with me. He was great. I mean, that whole Heroes Con was a great experience.
Yeah, I'm glad you got to do that.
Thank you. Let's see. When was this published as a book? Oh gosh, this is tiny writing.
It looks like 2003, 2004.
That's
coming at when they came out.
That's when the single issues came out. I'm wondering when this was printed. Because I bet I haven't read this since 2015-ish.
Oh wow.
Whenever it came out as a hardcover, I read it. And the first thing I thought of when I got done with it, I do remember thinking this was, somebody should have walked straight into Warner Brothers and dropped it on the table and said, make this the movie.
I know.
Make this the movie. This is what they should have done. Oh, here's Mary M. What up?
Mary!
I don't think, Heroes Con was fun. It's half of the fun was Mary M. and Kristen and Reed. That was great.
They're wonderful.
Yeah. I don't want to dox you. See, I know that word. So I don't want to dox you and have you say where you're from, but is Heroes Con an achievable place for you to go?
Okay. Yeah. I had a big trip planned this year that didn't happen because of passport woes, which I will not go into because I'm still recovering from my anger at the federal government.
Oh boy.
Will I ever recover? Probably not. I shouldn't say like that's the only thing they've ever done. Let me rephrase. It was just I was saving money, and then but based on Kristen's report, and I know Maddie usually goes, and Maddie and I live close by each other.
Oh, okay.
So I think we definitely have been talking like maybe this year or next year getting to go. So that would be awesome for sure. I heard it was great.
Yeah. It was really fun, and I'm going to spend more time there. I only gave it a half day on Saturday. Sounded like I was going to say half a star. I only gave it a half day, and because I was with Patty, and so I think we'll go down again, and she'll spend more time with our friends down there, and I can see myself spending all 3 days. I didn't get to, famously, I didn't get to Josh Greathouse, who still holds that over my head, but I didn't get to see everybody I wanted to see, and almost all of them were wildly friendly and incredibly generous with their time. So I don't know that I want to go to any other show again, because this is so fan friendly. I will say I would love to go to a show with a lot of cosplayers. I do like a really good cosplay, which of course goes to my cheesecake brain. Um, and peace and love to all guy cosplayers. I'm sure you do a great job, but I that's not for me. I would like to go to a good convention where there's a good amount of cosplayers, because I love the creativity and the hard work they put into those
Yeah.
costumes. I would love to go, but I'm not going to. I know a lot of them go to New York Comic Con.
Mhm.
That's not for me.
Yeah.
That's
We have
crazy.
we have one that's not that our city hosts every year. And I used to go all the time, but I actually haven't been to a con since the pandemic, I don't think. I just haven't found one that's like motivated me. And
Hmm.
I know you don't like crowds. I don't like crowds of any sort either. But ours, one thing they do have going for them is there is like a pretty good amount of cosplayers, and they have a cosplay show, like
Mm,
a competition, I guess, that people can
okay.
enter. So I usually will at least go to that, but they have the same comic book artists, same 5 people come all the time. And like maybe one of them I like, but I'm not going to go see them every single year. So Heroes Con appeals to me, I think, as ours becomes more like wrestlers, Power Rangers, and Nickelodeon cartoons. Those are like the 3 pop culture areas our city has decided are popular. And I guess they are because it's sustainable, but not something I really care about that much.
Wow, nothing against you, but I'm not sure I'm ever visiting your city.
Well, it's
I'm
just
not
our
going to
con.
that
We're a great
con.
city overall.
Okay. I'll come visit you in your city, but wow, not that con. Those are 3 things I do not care about.
Yeah, they're very into like the power. I went to the one of the Power Rangers panels one year, and it was like my era, Mighty Morphin, the
Okay.
OG.
Mhm.
And that was cool, but I was like, I feel absolutely no need to continue to go. But Mary M says New York Comic Con is right near her, but it's just not for her anymore either. It does feel like
Yeah,
a lot.
it's just too many people. And one thing I liked about Heroes Con was that I expected the aisles to be packed on Saturday, but the aisles were as clear as they were on Friday.
Hmm.
All the artists and writers were just as accessible. They do a great job of crowd control, or however they achieve it. But there was the main floor space was easily walkable. I mean,
Hmm.
I wasn't bumping into people at any moment, so it was really great.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's I can almost guarantee you would have a blast at it.
Yeah,
But
I'll get there if not this year, the next year. But we'll see if my
yeah,
passport woes work out. Then I'm going to Europe, and that's going to take all my money for a little while. And I'll happily let it take my money for a little while.
mm. Well, yeah, that is one thing about HeroesCon is I spent some dosh there,
Oh yeah.
and
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sure.
I
Yeah.
I did drop some coin, and you do get caught up in the moment. I don't regret anything I bought, but I I did drop a lot of coin there.
Hmm.
But you don't need your passport for HeroesCon, just so
I
you
don't.
know.
No,
They
I
no,
know.
you can
They just
just
let
walk.
anybody in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right here, me, sure.
Yeah, I will definitely get there. But to your point about Birthright, totally agree about the movie thing because it is a very familiar origin, but I feel like it takes that story and looks at it through different lenses, more unique lenses. So I agree. If you want to relaunch for a movie that's like true to the character and not super sad all the time, this could be a good place for you. Birthright.
Yeah, I am a famous I stan Mark Wade famously.
Hmm.
I've seen him, met him, interviewed him. 100% doubt he could pick me out of a lineup, but uh and I'm not best friends with him like I am now with Mike Allred, who I talk on through the message thing on YouTube.
Very
um,
cool.
but he is, and I'm reading World's Finest by Mark Wade right now, and
Hmm.
there's, some people just get comics, and I
Hmm.
think Mark Wade is one of those guys that just gets comics, and
Hmm.
he gets Superman. Um, this now I will say the art in this is kind of very stylized um, with its shading and stuff. It's got the sharp lines of Gary Frank, but Yu's art is um, a lot different. So his depictions of the
Yeah.
characters aren't quite as iconic, maybe, as Gary Frank, since they were pulling from the movie.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
uh,
this one has very sharp lines for the most part.
yeah,
Uh,
but I am a fan of his art, and so I thought I felt like this was a good choice to do the artwork for this book. They worked well together. Um, I yeah, um, especially since now he gave me gummy bears. I can't say anything
mm,
bad about it.
you can't. No.
I genuinely like his art and whatever else I've read it on, and it goes uh, very well with what Mark Waid was trying to say. Now you had some moments where you felt there was a bit of a misturn, or the face wasn't conveying what the message was.
Yeah, like one of the earliest examples, I'm going to try to find it in a second, was Jonathan Kent. See, I praised Jonathan Kent's depiction in Secret Origin, and I think honestly one of my only gripes, I have very few gripes about this book at all. I love this book. Is probably I didn't quite get Jonathan Kent in this one. Martha was really funny in this one because she's like, this is very of its time in the sense that
Yeah.
the use of emails in this book is aggressive. Martha is like in AIM with a screen name. She's here in the dial up. And you first see her, I think one of the first times you see her in this book, she's in a chat room about UFOs.
Right. I was
Shout out
just
to chat rooms. So Martha actually has like a personality. I don't really know what it is totally in this book, but Jonathan is a bit confusing. You definitely see where he feels inadequate to like handle the situation. Oh, there she is in her chat room. It's so funny to me. UFOs.com, a classic, a classic.
yeah.
Got a little floppy disk drive in that computer.
Okay.
I was trying to, I'll have to
Yeah,
find
with
what
an
her screen
alien
name
on it.
was.
There's an alien on her floppy right there.
There's a lot of alien obsession,
Yeah.
definitely in this book. Meanwhile, Jonathan, like one of the first scenes you see of him, he's trying to get Clark to like help him with something. Clark doesn't jump to do it at first, and he gets real angry about it and is like thrashing onto the machinery. And I'm like, I don't know if I think this might be a mismatch. I'm not sure that the Wade's intent was like depicting this exact emotion. And maybe he meant more inadequacy, like I feel inadequate and I feel out of control. But instead, it came across as like anger. I don't know. So
Yeah.
there were moments like that. I was like, not. I just think the Jonathan Kent stuff wasn't as strong here, and it is one of my favorite pieces of the origin. So that was the only little bit of letdown.
Yeah, he was almost harsh with
Yeah, harsh.
but I'm also thinking of it did make him very human.
Sure. Yeah,
To
that's true.
realize that his adopted son, has powers that
Yeah.
Jonathan can't really even wrap his
Mhm.
head around.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thinking that he's lashing out. Um, I try to put myself in that position.
Mhm.
You love your child, but as they grow older, they are more powerful than you, and
Mm.
so I think it may be anger mixed with fear, and
Mm.
um and so and he, Clark has a much better relationship um with his mother, but
Yeah.
I
In this
love,
one.
let me highlight my scene
Yeah.
because this is an important scene where after Jonathan smashes the Thrasher, Clark just interrupts
Mhm.
and takes him up into the air and says, "What on earth was that about? What's going on here, Dad?
Mhm.
What are you up to? What's happening to us here?" Um,
That's a good point about the fear because fear is a huge theme in this book. I was like
yeah,
pabbing every time they said fear. I was like, wow, this is a much bigger theme. And of course, it eventually leads to the antidote to that, which I guess we can talk about later. But that's a good point that actually if we're to listen to the wise Yoda, anger comes from fear. And so, yeah, maybe he is angry, but it's that base fear of like feeling inadequate, feeling like he can't do everything he wants to for his son. It's one and the same in many ways. And I loved that page. I just want to say that you showed just a second ago where he's doing his transformation. Because we talk about homages. One of my favorite Superman 78s. I don't care whether it's realistic that people don't recognize him as Clark. I don't care. I just don't care.
With this
But
part?
yeah, I love that. And that reminded me, I took it anyways, as an homage to that scene where Clark's going to pick up Lois in the 78. She's got the blue dress on. She forgets something. She goes to get it. And he's Clark and he's kind of schlumping and he has glasses. And then just the viewer sees him take his glasses and stand up. And he genuinely does look like a very different person with no special effects whatsoever. It's probably one of the best scenes in that movie, in my opinion. I took this as like a little bit of an homage to that, and I really loved that. But I think you made a great point about John for sure.
And they come to terms and make up for. Jonathan finally gets down, tamps down his anger, lets go of his fear, and as Clark tells him, where do you think I learned the good parts, the courage to do the good things, after they've had this up in the air discussion talking about his father's war experiences and stuff, and so they come to terms, and so I understood that, and I understood. I loved, you're right, the aggressive use of email in this is
it's
really
so many
funny, and so of its time, but it's let's see, I wanted to yeah, and that's what Castaway, you're right. Didn't it say, though, that he was upset because he felt like Clark was casting him aside because he didn't want his name anymore? Yeah, and they finally came to terms with that. But that's a good thing to point out. And this is great. I loved Black Ring. I have it in hardcover. I remember reading it during Blackest Night and Brightest Day, whatever, how he got the ring. Death's first DC appearance was in that. Slight boasting here. My letter made it into the number 900 letter column. People still write letters to comics publishers, and they still have letter columns. See, I don't know that because I really don't collect floppies. So
it's probably via email.
I would guess, yeah. But that was, when was Brightest Day, Blackest Night. That was pre New 52. So I'm guessing, when was that, Chris? What year was that you got that? I'm having trouble because I know New 52 started in 2012. So
maybe
I'm wondering,
2011, is that right? I just Googled 900, so.
Okay, it was 2011?
Maybe.
Yeah, okay, so 2010 was probably Blackest Night running, and then maybe Brightest Day was in 2011 or something. That's cool. That makes me want to get number 900 just to see, did you sign it Chris Kaufman, or did you use some weird whacked out name like Omnidog or something?
This one too, before Jonathan and Martha, I think one of the strongest points of this book, I mean, we do start on Krypton. I guess we didn't say that about Secret Origin, but it goes without saying, both of them start on Krypton. In this one, because this book does a little bit more with like having a through line story, bookends. The big dilemma at the end is
amazing.
We both forgot the ending, and when we were messaging, we're like, "Oh my god, the ending!" Which we won't fully spoil, but
we won't spoil it. But we both had the same reaction, which was great.
But they question, like, their fear is, in this version of the retelling, they actually don't like, oh, this is Earth and this will be habitable for him. It's kind of unknown. Like, it's sort of a Hail Mary to see if their son can find a place that he's going to live. But after that, instead of going to Clark's childhood in Smallville, I thought it was a bold choice and a really interesting choice to actually start this book in West Africa. So you kind of, instead of going to Smallville, like the first issue of The Secret Origin, version of things. You go to West Africa. There's sort of this tribal war that's going on. Clark is covering the story, and he's like a young adult teenager in this version. Young adult.
A young freelance
Um,
journalist.
yeah. And I thought that was really strong because, you and I both love Space Age, but it is, as you've pointed out, it's a fair criticism to say it's very US centric, which
Hmm.
is, here or there. Your mileage is going to vary.
Right.
But it was a bold choice, I thought, to say, okay, in this origin retelling, we are first not going to open up in Smallville, Kansas. We're going to open up across the globe. And we're going to have Clark learn lessons from these people that are around him. And there's lots of rich thematic work that Wade starts early on with. They're wearing masks in one of the ceremonies, and you hear Clark say, young, before he's really like Superman. He's like, the thing about masks in my culture, and there's nothing, wrong. It's just a difference between the two cultures. And in our culture, it would symbolize distrust,
Yeah.
right? Like that it puts you're trying to hide something. And I thought there was just a lot of unique stuff. And his first hero that he really sees be selfless and connects with is somebody from West Africa, not necessarily somebody from the US. So I really thought that was a bold choice. And I think it hits the mark for the most part in that first story.
Yeah, I strongly agree with you that not only is it a bold choice to start there, but what he learns from the selfless leader
Mm-hmm.
um, of the tribe that
Mm-hmm.
is basically second class citizens to the tribe that's in power.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it what I also think, and I'm going to show you a picture, is in a second. Um, what it also tells us is that he's being seen in these random spots of around the globe. He's actually being seen using his powers.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know yet. He hasn't figured out yet that he needs a secret identity, that he
Mm.
needs a costume that or anything. So he saves the tribal leader's life by taking like 24 bullets in his shirt,
Mm-hmm.
and it it alludes to this isn't the first time this has happened around the globe, that he's
Mm-hmm.
been seen doing things heroic or superhuman like in other
Mm-hmm.
spots around the globe and not necessarily the US. So there's
Mm-hmm.
already sort of a rumor floating around the world of this super type
Mm.
man that has uh, done been seen across the US. I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
across the globe. So he doesn't, which I thought was really cool, that he doesn't actually know the importance of a secret
Mm.
identity yet. He wants to help. He thinks he's helping. Well, he wants to help, and he's trying to help through his journalism.
Mm-hmm.
He's learning. He's a freelance journalist, and he's learning about other people and other
Mm.
oppressed people throughout the world
Mm.
through his journalism. But this is the scene that I wanted to see in the movie, and I
Mm.
had it. I actually had it in my head as I was listening to something by Jane's Addiction, that without the words and just the music, would be an extended scene of Clark,
Oh yeah, it's a great one.
joy of flying and running with the herd here.
Mm-hmm.
I just I just had it pictured in my mind that
Mm.
he wouldn't necessarily be in his costume, but he would be like running with antelope and
Mm-hmm.
flying with birds and just going up to the sun
Mm-hmm.
at the right at the peak of the music from this Jane's Addiction song, and just exulting in the sheer joy of
Mm-hmm.
being able to do these things. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
man, that would have been such a good 2-minute segment in the movie, like just after the first 10 or 15 minutes, where he's showing the sheer joy of just
Mm.
what he can do, and with a big smile on his face and appreciating it, and not looking at his powers as a burden but as a gift.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this is actually, I think it's so hard to tell when it's collected like this, but I think it's two issues that this West Africa stuff takes place over, which is also a bold choice when you think about people buying it in singles and it's starting so differently. But I loved
Yeah.
what you just said, not just about the joy, but also the humility. Like some heroes and their secret identities, as far as occupation go, hand in hand, like Daredevil and Law, and like listening to people's heartbeats. Are they lying or not? So I know, whatever. I think that I love that. And I think with Clark, there's of course the one aspect that I think both of these actually mentioned, which is as a journalist, you're going to find out about things first. So you can go there. And then he's thinking, so I can go and save people, or I can go and do XYZ. But I think you just brought up a really good point, which is choosing the occupation of journalism early on and getting exposed to different cultures, trying to listen for the truth. It takes someone, in order to tell a truthful story, first an attitude of humility, which again,
Mm,
when you have godlike powers, is quite an act to have godlike powers and then try to practice humility, cultural humility, humility at large. And I think you just pointed that out. Like, I didn't even think about this. That's how he's approaching all of these stories as a journalist, and that does help frame your mindset, in how you're going to approach when the world does look to you to solve their problems. If you're starting in this humble, really self-aware place and you have that grounding, and then you have the Kents, of course, and their grounded upbringing, that really informs who you become later with this godlike ability. So I like that you pointed that out for sure.
mm.
There's also the homage, of course, to Action One,
Yeah,
this time taking place in West Africa.
yeah, that's so great. And he multiple times in West Africa uses his powers
Yep.
and doesn't even think about it. He just
Hmm.
uses them to save people. And and I just ran into this.
Yep.
And then he is well, spoiler alert, it affects him deeply when he can't save somebody.
Yes.
When he chose to save the many over the few or the individual, and it deeply affects him and
Yeah.
has
That's so
him.
important.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and he's not writing for the Daily Planet. His article gets posted in the Ghana Dispatch, and
Hmm.
it's and you're right. It was this is page 57. So it was at least 2 issues where he's doing that. I don't It's not broken down. I don't I don't actually know what the breakdown is of the issues, but you're right. It was at least 2 issues. It doesn't say how many issues. Wait.
DC needs to put an index. It drives me
Yeah.
insane. This one did have was it this one? Oh no, it was Secret Origin. Oh, this one has some page count
Oh
numbers
yeah.
on
This is
random pages, not all of them, which is at
Birthright
least
1 through
helpful.
12. This is Birthright 1 through 12. So yeah, he had 12 issues that he was able to tell this story,
Hmm.
which is why he could spend so much time in West Africa, I think,
Yeah.
because that, as you said, that establishes him as the humble, grounded person uh, who wants to uh, use his powers to help people. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think this is why Mark Waid started with this, is because
Yeah.
instead of showing him, as you said, in Smallville, getting it instilled just by Ma and Pa Kent,
Hmm.
it's the real world that shows him that even his powers aren't enough to save the life of the one man that he thought was the most important when he had to save the entire village.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple, there's so many. I'm thinking about there's a pretty classic story that we might eventually get to that revolves around Clark reflecting after someone dies by suicide and not being able to stop that. There's actually a very recent retelling of that in Harvests of Youth, which is like the new graphic novel that came out. Your mileage is going to vary with that one. I didn't love it, but it's a similar concept, which is
What was
the,
the
it,
story that you're referring to? Where
I'd have to look up where it comes in, but I can look
oh,
it up
where
and send you
where
the
he
issue.
loses someone that he tried to save?
Yeah, it's happened a couple times. Like there's been people who've died by terminal illness in a couple of stories, and then there's one story that I'm trying to remember where it came in. Someone in the chat might know, where someone dies by suicide, and he also can't stop that. And I think it goes to this I won't say criticism, but a thought that people often have is like, it's kind of boring to read about Superman because he's so powerful. It's like too much
Right.
power. And I do like definitely understand that to some degree. But I think the opening like a story like this, he couldn't save this one person. He also couldn't stop this tribal war from happening. Like, what is it like to be almost all powerful and so have the expectations of being all powerful, but to really be helpless when it comes to, everything? It's like somebody who's not as overpowered isn't going to blame themselves if something happens halfway across the world, or they may, if it's something happens to someone in their lives, they certainly may reflect upon it a lot. But what's it like to be all powerful and not be able to stop something? And I say all powerful like this because he's not really. We know that it's just the
Yeah.
invention of the writer that gets really good stories where those powers are hampered or ineffective. But I think
Right.
that I totally agree with you that him seeing that leader as a hero who, as a human, was able to affect change with no powers, and then to lose that person when he could have stopped it. Like there's just so much going on in those first two issues that really encapsulate why the sort of overpowered thing really is can be lazy writing. If there are creative ways to write this character when they are so powerful, that make it interesting. Like I don't know. It's definitely, I think, an intentional choice on Wade's part to open like that for sure.
Yeah. And we both admire it. And he goes, he goes back home a changed man, and that's when he finally kind of reconciles with his father. Um, and then he heads off to Metropolis
Mm-hmm.
To try to get the and in both cases, he in Secret Origin and
Mm-hmm.
Birthright, he's not that comfortable in that costume. That
Mm-hmm.
the first one, I in both, I think he helps make the costume with his heat vision or his costume
Mm-hmm.
making vision or whatever vision he's using, his fashion vision.
It's
Um,
super fashion powers.
yeah,
A
that would pay off in this current era. If you had super
mm-hmm.
fashion powers, you get a TV show, man.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so yeah, they try and get him to look different and to tell him to
Mm-hmm.
frump up and not look uh
Mm-hmm.
like the powerful guy he is. And we'll get to this probably sooner rather than later, but I think Frank quietly does an awesome job of frumping Clark up in
Oh yeah,
All-Star
agree.
Superman.
Oh yeah.
There's a clear difference between the clumsy oaf of a farm
Yeah.
boy and the superhero that's behind that frump.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I totally agree, 100%. This one does okay. He also it's so interesting, this one more than the other one stood out to me as far as art, where occasionally, you'll get this where when he's drawn as Clark, he's so, like, slender, and then all of a sudden he's
Oh,
got more muscles, like a huge, huge shoulders, and I'm like, "No, you don't." But to your point, quietly goes from, like, shoulders because 'cause you're buff, and then shoulders because 'cause you're slump, right? And I
right.
think there's a way of, like, not changing the physique, but changing the posture, the attitude that makes a bit more sense if you're gonna believe in the secret identity passing right ability of Clark. So yeah, this one is an example where suddenly he's like very buff, and I'm like, that's not really how it works. You can't.
um, it, I loved Luther's depiction in this.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that.
I did love it in this where he has so removed himself from Smallville that he doesn't even remember Clark when Clark, or he says he doesn't even
He
remember.
says he doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, but I believe that he, um, when he first meets Luther, I I believe Luther doesn't remember him because Luther has undergone an extreme change as this powerful billionaire with um, who's got this kind of evil underhanded pact with the military that
Mm,
Lois's father represents, and is testing the military hardware out with uh real ammunition. And people are getting hurt from it. until Superman confronts him, and Luthor is depicted as almost a Willy Wonka type of favor granter.
Mm,
People gather outside his headquarters every day, where he appears on high, like, as you said, he's
mm-hmm,
trying to be a god, but he's human,
mm,
and granting the wish of one person that he picks out of the crowd, of these downtrodden people. And so he immediately uh, becomes threatened by Superman, and this is I feel like this is the first time uh, the alien. This is the
mm,
first time I became aware um, of how Luther started using the alien angle against Superman.
mm,
He's not from here; he's from somewhere else. Now,
mm.
it may have been used in the '90s, but it certainly could have been. But this is the first time I really became aware of how Luther tries to promote fear and distrust of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
He's not one of us.
No, I think you're right, because I think we mentioned earlier at the top, Birthright comes out before Secret Origin comes out. Secret Origin also had, we didn't talk about it, but there is a whole plot in there. It's the General Lane, John Corbin issue,
Right.
Metallo stuff, where actually Superman is captured by the government, by the military, and there's this interrogation scene where they're like, "You're not one of us." But I agree. I think thematically, it's funny that it starts with Martha Kent in the UFO chat room, but I think that's actually because this goes so hard on that not one of us, and that is what produces fear. People are afraid of what they don't know. And so I do think it was definitely an intentional choice to play that up right at the beginning, to plant sort of a funny seed that you then have in your mind. And actually, we joke about the emails in the chat rooms, and they are like a little much, but I
Yeah.
also think, people connecting and sort of fear mongering, like using news or the internet to fear monger about those things,
Uh-huh.
is very much a real and present thing that
Sure.
happens all the time. And I
Yeah.
think the internet and etc., while it's good for lots of things like community building, like we talked about, it also has this very toxic side where you can instill fear and hatred in that way. But I totally think you're right. And I love both, of course, in Secret Origin and this. The parallels that we can take, of course, about like xenophobia and things like
Hmm.
that are so real, and I think always have been. But I totally agree. I think it's really a heavy and present theme in this one, and there's so many angles to Superman as a character to look at. There's so many things he can represent, and I certainly think that's one of them. Um, and so I think thematically, it's very rich for me in that sense, because that's something that speaks to me for sure, working in immigration and the like.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. I showed this picture, Daily Planet, with sort of Superman was trying to save the bridge, but this is the first time that he's exposed to kryptonite that, of course, Luther has. I think Luther discovered it in Secret Origins too first, and used it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's found in Smallville. Yeah, I think in Secret Origin. Um, Actually, it may have been found in. It wasn't it found in Smallville in this book too, somewhere.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, he had it, and um, what what Luther has is this. I thought this was great. The way he gets introduced, Superman gets introduced to Krypton and his
Hmm.
heritage is from this piece that's radiating kryptonite that uh, with Kryptonian writing on it that Luther owns, and exposes him to. I'm trying to. Oh yeah, here, not one of us.
Yeah. And
And there's
Luther, his technology that he's working on in throughout the book. Well, we should talk to a little bit about him in Smallville, and because that's a huge segment of this book. But the invention he's working on throughout creates, I'm very bad with science fiction, but basically creates like a wormhole where you can see into a moment in space and time,
yeah,
which coinciding with the kryptonite, sorry, allows for, yeah, this like access to Kryptonian information, memories, past, etc. Which is very different than in Secret Origin, where Clark has this moment where he touches the ship, but he's with his parents and he can see Jor-El. Totally different to uh, mentally first be in a place in Secret Origin where it's your parents, you're younger, they can comfort you, versus you're an adult trying to find your identity. You've gone all across the globe to think about it. And the person who's sort of most exposing you to it is your enemy, somebody who hates you and who's trying to get people to fear you. And has it not be something for you to connect to emotionally in that moment necessarily, but actually whose intent is to scare you, to say, like, I'm going to reveal you as this. It's very
Yeah.
different depiction of that moment. Interesting.
Yeah. And I can't, he does, he confronts Luther several times, but um, this is when he Luther is just laughing with glee when he finds out that his piece, his wormhole and the piece of Kryptonian technology that he has, and the wormhole is actually and Clark or Superman informs him that through their discussion that it's a planet he's looking for, and Luther's the one that reveals to him that Krypton's his home world. And you're right that that his mortal enemy is the one that introduces him to watching. Luther's basically tunneled into the wormhole, as you said, and showing Clark pieces of the past in Krypton, and that's exactly. And here's some more fear mongering from the Metropolis Eagle. But I thought that was an amazing piece, and so I thought that was an amazing way for Wade to show Superman what his true origin is through the small piece of irradiated Krypton technology, and then in a brilliant xenophobic, well, not xenophobic, but terror and fear mongering way, creates with the symbol of hope and puts them on weapons to imply that Superman is part of an advanced scout for an alien invasion. And he fakes.
And everyone's thing they're afraid of, spiders. I mean, that was like a giant dinosaur bug. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. And then he's got super soldiers with the S on. And so I thought that was just a really, and kryptonite is in some of the tech here that Luther can produce through his machinery, and so Superman's getting weakened as he tries to save people, and just the sheer amount of fear mongering and hatred that one person can create is remarkably told in this.
But he can bring out in people. I think that's the interesting part is Lex basically bets on the fact that fear is the greatest motivator. He says as such. I forget exactly how he phrases it in this book, but he says something to the effect of fear is what drives people. And there's actually an earlier page before the battle, I think, where Clark's like, that's not what drives people is fear. And we are left to wonder what Clark thinks, which we find out at the end. But it does parallel to, there's a huge chunk of this book where we're in Smallville with Lex and Clark, which Lex is in Smallville in Secret Origin, but it's very brief. You see his sad childhood. It doesn't really carry emotional weight, I don't think. But in this book, it does, because Lex is being picked on a lot, partly because he's kind of a jerk. He does it to himself. He's kind of awful. And Clark is like adamant. He talks to John and Martha at the dinner table even about it. He's like, this is what's happening, but I'm adamant. Everyone's afraid of him, but I want to, I still want this relationship to work. I just think he needs someone to listen to him. And you learn later in this moment where, yes, Lex shows the kryptonite. He starts talking about what will later become this wormhole mega plan, because he started young. And in that moment, Clark is weakened. Now, of course, Lex doesn't know
That's right.
that. And
That's
so he
right.
depicts fear on his face because he's like literally cowering in pain. But the way Lex interprets that is like, you're the only person who wasn't afraid of me, who didn't think I was crazy. And now you're reacting like this. And he gets incredibly angry. So
That's
when you
right.
parallel that to Lex using fear, like this guy's childhood against him, it's really good writing, but it's also like really awful. It just shows. But yeah, I think Lex banks on people's fear and Clark bets on people's hope. And that's like a huge difference between the two, because later you do talk about, there's so much with this shield later. And I like the way you laid it out. We could show some of the ways it's used for good later, but that's later what he says is like, hope is the antidote. Hope is the thing. And it gets associated with the shield or crest later.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point about how much they interact in Smallville and how it seems genuine to me that Lex has just blanked out his
Mm-hmm.
past. Um, I, I can see how you could make the argument that he's just acting, or he doesn't want to be reminded of Smallville, and so when
Mm-hmm.
Clark introduces himself, he just says, "I don't even know Smallville or who you are." Is that acting, or is that his megalomania brain just wiping out what he doesn't want to remember? The wormhole effect and his friendship with Clark for a brief moment are pretty closely tied together. And the time period when between that and when they meet again isn't
Mm-hmm.
that long. So I don't know. You can interpret it as he's just ignoring Clark and
Mm-hmm.
he knows Clark and is ignoring him, or he's selectively removed things from his memory as he's focused his brain on getting rich and trying to be a godlike figure to the people.
Yeah, it's a good point when it was funny when you said megalomaniac brain like represses it. Every human brain does, right? We all repress things that we don't want to remember. And sometimes
Mhm.
it's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional. So I totally agree though that I'm not sure. Um, I don't know that there's a right or wrong interpretation, right?
Right.
Either way, I don't know that it changes it too much. So yeah, but I think everyone's brain does that. Maybe that shows the humanity in Lex as well, and
That's a
that's a
good
way of
point.
looking at it.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a good point.
I did wanna
Um,
show where he ages 20 years back to back real quick.
oh, okay.
So this is what I meant earlier. So here's he's kinda young, little sprightly ginger. Yeah, like fresh face, no scrub. And then I know he's been working in the lab, kinda like grimy, but all of a sudden, this is who comes to the door later. And he looks like Gail Simone's what's his name? Wildcat, is that his name? In the Secret Six, like
Oh,
very grizzled by life. I'm like, whoa, this happened quick. But I just wanted to show that because I was like, this is a very stark contrast to 2 pages ago.
yeah, that's true. Just for Lars and Rahul, it didn't start 15 hours ago, but that's when I created it because I was worried about waking up. I always want to post. I always want to create the show 2 hours ahead of time because that's usually you get a notice 2 hours ahead of time when it's created, and then half an hour before it's created, if I'm
Mm.
remembering my YouTube right. But since it started at 1, um, and I wasn't sure what kind of night I was going to have, I created it last night and sent the link to Jessica last night too. Um,
Oh,
so what?
Chris said the show's giving them Superman fever. That's great.
Good.
Yeah.
You should check out Julian Totino Tedesco art on the variant covers for Philip Kennedy Johnson's War World
War
run.
World. Yeah, I gotta read that still.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you have Superman fever. I'm so sad I can't recommend American Alien to people anymore. I liked it way more than Secret Origin. Birthright is so good though. I think one issue with Luther in Secret Origin is that it's so clearly what Smallville already did on TV with
Mm.
so much more time. Okay, I didn't see Smallville, so I actually don't know.
Well, it's just to say, like I think these retellings I don't know when the first time, I'm not gonna be a historian. I have no clue when the first time Lex appeared in Smallville in a young Clark's life in comics, but I do think these all came out post initial Smallville, and the crux of Smallville is that Lex and Clark are friends at the beginning. That is, like,
Hmm.
why the show is the way it is, and so I think that's maybe the spirit of the comment is it's almost they insert him in the childhood to say like, "Oh yeah, this is the new origin and secret origin," but it doesn't carry weight for the story later. Whereas like here, it carries so much weight into the events that unfold and the themes that are pulled out. But yeah, it's not really used for effect. The insertion of Lex and Clark's childhood in Secret Origin. It's kind of
Right.
it probably could be exactly the same without it. I think is the spirit of that comment.
Yeah. Um, so
So back to the spider.
is that a spider or an
I
ant?
don't
I don't
know.
know. Either
It's
either way.
terrifying. I
But
don't like it.
here's the piece of Kryptonian technology that Lex has
Mhm.
found and helps Superman find out more about his origin. Yeah, so the ant and so he's referred to as a super spy, um
Mhm.
and he's trying to save people, and he's saying things, damn it, I'm not the enemy here.
Mhm.
So wait, let's see what that thing really is.
Because the paranoia has gotten so bad that there's like one panel, for example, where they're selling Superman toys at a toy shop and people have like graffitied on it because they've totally turned against him, things like
Yeah,
that. The end of
yeah.
this goes, it's very, I love this book. The maybe another small tweak is the ending is super rushed. Like a lot is happening in like 3 issues. We go through quite a bit. I still
Oh, I
think it
didn't get
works
that
great.
feeling. Okay.
It was like, I don't know, for me, it felt a bit of a whirlwind, but I still had a great time and think it works. It hits all the right notes.
I the ending proves to me, along with the ending of Irredeemable, that
Mm.
Mark Waid knows how to stick the landing on a book. The the
Yeah, I
ending on
agree.
this, I mean, I read the last 5 pages over and over again, and I got legit choked up at one point. It it is such a great ending, and I kind of I wish I had
Mm.
time to ask Mark Waid. I think we interviewed him during the pandemic. Um, I would have loved to figured out when he thought of that ending. Did he have that ending?
Mm.
I wonder if writers have the ending in mind and they say, "Okay, I want to get to this ending this way." Or
Mhm.
maybe sometimes they're just writing and the issue um the ending comes to them. I don't
Mhm.
know, but either way, he stuck the landing strongly in my opinion. I
Yeah.
I never saw it coming. I never could have
No.
figured it out. I thought it was just remarkably uh poignant and satisfying. It was
Mhm.
comforting, and
Mhm.
it was just shockingly good. And
Yeah,
Comic Slayer, don't even start. Yeah,
maybe
I know what kind of Superman fever you have.
I
Don't
was gonna
even
say
start with me. Don't
just
I'm gonna have
Halo.
James ban you. Don't toy with our emotions like that. I know what you're doing. You.
Yeah, it's a good bookend, though, I totally agree. I read this before and didn't you I think you said you didn't remember that either. We were both
Mm.
like, "I have no memory." We won't spoil it because I do think it's so good,
Oh,
like
yeah, it's so important to read that ending.
And it's
Uh,
what makes it too like a full story. It's not just trying to retell an origin, it is also trying to tell a story, and I do appreciate that. Whereas I feel like again with Secret Origin, I enjoy it, but I don't know that it's trying to tell a cohesive story. I just think it's trying to retell the origin. Nothing wrong with that. But this one
yeah.
gives us both, and so it feels more satisfying to me.
Can't can't you see yourself in a movie theater seeing that ending with the music
I would love it.
swelling up
Yeah.
and the tears will start coming down your eyes as the
Yep.
music just yanks the emotions out of you?
Mhm.
What a missed opportunity to have told this story.
Mhm.
I love this is probably I don't know if what's going to be fun is we're going to go through the whole Superman catalog and I'll figure out what my favorite Superman book is. But
Mhm.
I've always felt, and I still have the standard. I didn't get the
Mhm.
deluxe, but I've always felt this is my this and Secret Identity are my two favorite Superman books.
Oh, wow, like, of all time in general.
I think
Wow.
so as of right
Mhm.
now, but what's going to be fun is we're going to
Yeah,
figure that out.
yeah.
I
It
I I feel like this is my favorite Superman story. Now I do whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, of course, gets me because that's where they are. Alan Moore does a brilliant job of ending the Silver Age gently, violently and gently and crazily, but he ends it in a way to let the new storytelling begin, which was,
Mhm.
I don't know, Man of Steel or whatever it was in
Mm.
84, 85, or 86, whenever whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow was published. But what was the story you said was in your copy that I don't think I have in whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow? Do you remember what story we were
Yeah,
talking about?
I think, I'm looking it up to try to remember.
Larry's Comic Slater says Larry's library. Why are we here? Larry says just dropped in for a second. Yeah, I can see that too. That Wade would see that it's that wasn't his Superman at all. Superman versus Meshy. I may have you on, and then I'll drop out, and
I
you
was
and
gonna say,
Jessica.
but Jess won't read that.
Yeah, you and Jessica can talk about it. Um, this is the moment. I agree with Lars that my favorite Superman moment is the girl
That's a
on the
great
ledge in
one.
All Star Superman. Um,
I think
that
they homage to that, but make it a joke, which I'm not sure how I feel about. Was that in Secret Origin when Jimmy's and he's like, "Don't jump," and he's like, "I'm not
oh,
jumping. I'm just like up here."
I
And I was like, "Don't love that joke." I think it
I
was
think
in the
Secret
Secret
Origin
Origin.
happened
Yeah.
before All Star Superman.
Oh, okay, okay,
I'm
okay.
almost
That makes it feel
positive it
less
happened
like a slap in the
before.
face.
Yeah, I don't think they had anything to do with each other. Although I myself would never be standing on the ledge of a building making my final decision to leave the city.
City.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of I when we went to New York in 2006, we went to top of the Empire State Building,
Mhm.
and I got really ill looking. I was like looking out and everything, and it was fine. And then I looked down, and I got physically
Oh,
sick.
like vertigo,
Yeah,
vertigo.
I had to back
Oh,
up, and I said,
yeah.
"Okay, you guys take your time, but I'm just going to be pressed up here against the top of the building." I was like, "Oh,
But Jimmy's used to living on the edge to
I
get the right
guess
shot, so
so."
literally.
Oh, cycle had to switch to music for the last hour of biking to maintain intensity. Did I miss anything? You missed the whole show, you yuts. What are you talking
We
about?
love Superman, it's what you miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so Miriam had just finished Superman versus Meshy. Doesn't think they needed more than one. That's a bummer. I'm
That
sure
is a
it's me.
bummer.
No, it's probably the book, Mary. I bet that it's the book.
The first one, I'm halfway through. It's really cute. I am really enjoying it. But I love food. I love food and comics,
Oh
especially manga.
yeah.
I have no idea why, but like a bowl of ramen drawn is very appealing to me.
I, I love noodles. That I could
Mm.
I am married to the wrong woman to love noodles. Just a sec. Secret Origin started advertising. Oh, a
Oh,
year
okay.
after All Star finished. I didn't equate the two at all.
Hmm.
But I I don't know. Maybe.
So does All Star come out between these 2 books? Is that right? So, like,
Um,
Birthright,
I
All
feel
Star, and then Secret Origin? I'm terrible with this sort of specifics of
yeah.
things.
This I feel like Birthright was the first one because it was 2001, 2000.
Yeah. Birthright for
Okay,
sure is the first of 3, right?
2003, 2004. Okay, 2004. Then I feel like Secret Origin was more like Tiny Print was 2010. It came out in 2010, so All Star Superman must have come out between these two. And I don't know
Hmm.
when Secret Identity was printed. We'll figure that out when we review it next.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think Birthright belongs in league with All Seasons, All Star, and All Star. Yeah, I agree with that. Secret Origins is more in line with what you get with Jeff Johns being decent enough. I like Jeff Johns a little more than you do, Muhammad.
Mm.
Or Dr. Masoom, as Bunk refers to you as. Um, blah, 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 blah. My favorite Batman book ever is Jeff Johns and Gary Frank's Earth One. The first two books, especially.
I think all season we talked because when we were thinking about which books to pick, we kind of chatted a little bit about this, which is I feel like All Star and for all seasons, we are kind of poetic in their writing. And I don't mean like there's a narrative structure, but I think they rely on you having a love for the character or that you enjoy the character, and they're just pulling out the best parts and making the themes richer. I feel like this one has really rich themes. Absolutely. I don't care how, listen, it is really corny when Superman is protecting that child and uses a giant shield, like literally the S shield to protect the kid. But I live my life on the Cobb. I don't care that it's corny. I love it. I love it so much. I don't care. But I
Oh my
do
gosh.
think you could give this book to someone who doesn't like have, and they would enjoy it as a story, I think, overall, unless you're certain people. But I think the other two rely on you knowing the character pretty well and at least enjoying the character. So they're not really origins. I think they're love letters to the character. That's how I see it anyways.
I think that's a perfect way to say it, that they're love letters. And we love reading love letters to Superman.
Absolutely. Press the gummy bear in between the pages so we can always remember.
Whenever you say gummy bear being flattened, do you ever watch The Simpsons?
No, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons as a kid, so it just never stuck with me. Yeah.
Okay, well, there is an episode that Superman, Homer goes to a candy convention and steals the rarest gummy bear there is. And he drives the babysitter home, who ends up sitting on the gummy bear, and a controversy starts afterwards because the babysitter took it wrong. Homer was going after the gummy bear, not her.
Oh gosh.
After she gets up, he just peels the gummy bear off the seat. It's all flattened now. He's like, see you later. And then it turned into just a indictment of those kind of those shows that Chris Hansen did. I can't think of. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where he captures the To Catch a Predator or something?
No,
like
I have
that.
No frame of reference.
Okay, somebody tell me what I'm thinking of. The Chris Hansen was on. I feel like it was To Catch a Predator or something.
Like the TV show To Catch a Predator? Or no?
I may be using the wrong. Okay. Bar says it is To Catch a Predator. The TV show that Chris Hansen was a host of.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, this looks familiar.
They would lure a predator, a child predator, and actually catch him in the middle of committing a crime and interviewing him. It was incredibly intense, and I couldn't watch it. I mean, I watched it for a little bit and found it interesting, and then I just started thinking it was icky, and the whole world was icky. Oh, okay. So it was To Catch a Predator. Okay, thank you, Mary.
It looks familiar. It looks like it was on NBC, which is kind of.
It was NBC on like a Friday night, I think, maybe.
We were doing wild things, though. Do you remember Wife Swap or Black and White? What were we thinking as a society? That was not. We were wrong for that, and everyone needs to apologize. It's so wild.
I was aware of those shows. I never watched them.
Well, similar vibes. It's like, we don't need this.
Yeah.
I don't think we need
it. I will say my wife loves The Golden Bachelor and has been watching it.
Same.
Okay, good. Then there's The Real Housewives of Potomac.
Oh.
And one of the housewives we know the husband and we know the whole backstory of her in The Real Wives of Potomac. So we watch some of it for her moments,
Yeah.
but otherwise those shows, I I have I got scary shows. I have Mike Flanagan shows that I've got to watch.
Mm,
I still need to see The Haunting of Bly Manor or whatever it was. That's what I want to see.
mm.
So,
I love his stuff. I'm not a huge Midnight Mass fan, but I've really enjoyed everything else, or
oh,
if
I
not
just
loved it.
finished. Okay, I just finished Midnight Mass, and I
Mhm.
sobbed at that ending. I just
Well, then you're gonna
really,
love the other stuff, I think, even
y-
more.
yeah. Was there not a guy who was caught twice? I don't know. Wow.
Wouldn't
Um,
surprise me.
you can't jump between shows, Bar. There's always a stream of consciousness going through my shows. Um, let's see. I missed some things. Lars is right. What does he write? Oh, I'm probably in a minority here, but I am not a big fan of all seasons. Okay, well,
Mhm.
you're entitled. That's
Yeah,
fine. Oh,
absolutely.
this is a good idea for us in the future. Please map the reading list. We'll get every book we've ever like, or we it could be something we do in the not too distant future, but I don't
The
know how
highlights, just the good stuff, maybe?
well, map the reading list. I don't know that it's that important to read these books chronologically, but
Mm,
we could map um like maybe after our first 4 or 5 shows, um make a show that is the greatest hits, or maybe after our first
yeah.
like year. After our first year, we could make a greatest hits show. Like out of all these great Superman books, and we show all of them,
Mm.
we can talk about each one and then narrow it down to like our favorite handful or something.
Yeah. Or there is like a thematic. I mean, we just talked about there's a bit of a thematic reading order. Like I think these are better to read before
Well, that's true. Yeah.
All Seasons and All Stars. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Those books do, these books don't require any Superman knowledge to go into. You're right. I think All
Mm.
Star and For All Seasons and uh, some of the other books do require some knowledge of Superman.
Mhm.
So map the reading list. Um, we could, okay, we should talk about it off air, what we think a reading list would look like.
I
Oh,
think we could come up with something. Not in like
yeah.
chronological order, because you could find that anywhere.
Yeah.
But we could do a greatest hits for sure. And a good
Yeah.
suggested order. Absolutely.
Yeah. And a suggested order and a
Yeah.
greatest hits. Yeah. We can do
Yeah, for
whatever we
sure.
want.
We make
This
the
is,
rules.
that's right. This is our place. We make the rules here. Absolutely. Um, Secret Order, blah, 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 blah. A regular Superman show with Jess's. Woohoo!
Ooh,
Yeah. I hear the Superman theme song and tears are always swelling up. Christopher
it's
Reeve
so
is my
good.
favorite Superman. No argument there. Let's see. Reaper had something else. Don't know. Yep. All Star came out from 2005 to 2008. Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense then.
Lars's remark that he did not like. Oh my God, I'm not going to highlight that from you, Cycle Cleveland. That's a ridiculous statement about For All Seasons. How dare you? What are you doing in here? Go back to riding your bike. Here's a good question. So, are we
Mm.
done with Birthright? I think I have 15 more minutes, and then I can sign off, and we can just randomly chat about Superman if we want. But what
Yeah,
on a
what are you
scale?
rating it?
I This is a solid 9. I don't know what keeps it from being a 10, except that I'm just scared to give any book a 10.
Yeah.
Um, I I mean, I love everything about this book, and I love Mark Waid. I love the artist. Um, and I think that ending is what pulls it from maybe an 8 up to a 9.5 for me. That ending alone,
Wow.
tied into the beginning, I just think is brilliant and could have been
Mhm.
a crazy great movie. So,
Mhm.
uh, I'm going to go full Jessica here and give it a 9.2. I'm going to
Oh, point
CGC
two.
grade it. Yeah, I'm going to CGC grade it. 9.2.
Wow. Yeah, I concur. I think it's a 9 for me only because I agree. I'm like, why am I keeping it from 10? Because I can think of a couple of books that are Superman books that are a very clear 10 out of 10, really like perfect books in my opinion. And
Oh.
when I hold this one up to those, I can't say it's on the same level, but I think it's great. And if I was going to hand one of the two that we talked about to someone, it's probably almost always going to be Birthright. So, yeah,
Yeah.
9
Well,
out of
I'm
10.
looking forward to future episodes where I find out your 10s. That's going to
Yeah,
be
I'll keep them a
interesting.
secret for now.
Yeah, good. Oh, please do. Yeah, I don't want to
Mhm.
know. I want that to be super surprise like the ending was in this.
It's a great ending. Yeah, it's worth it just for the ending.
What do I have birthmarked? Birthright, copyright. No, there's no reason for me to have that bookmark in there. Okay. So let's see. I'm probably in the minority. Here's a good question from Reaper from Australia, down under. Who is a
Mm.
writer and artist you'd like to see team up for a standalone miniseries or Black Label series of Superman? My dog pressed send early on the last message. That's great. Oh, that's this one.
Oh, they were eager to get that question out there. Oh,
The dog really wanted it out there.
I'm trying to
My dog
think.
pressed send. Um, I'd like to see team up for a standalone miniseries
Mhm,
or
mhm.
Black Label. Black Label's interesting to
Edgy.
yeah, to think of edgy Superman.
Mm.
Um, uh, well, we have already got Mark Miller's Red Sun. Um, I can't wait to review that. Who, since they seem to be going back and forth between publishers. Well, Kelly Thompson seems to
Hmm.
be. I feel like she's only written female characters, which there's nothing wrong with that. She writes
Mhm.
strongly, but I can't remember. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Kelly Thompson tackle Superman if she's up for it. She is writing Birds of Prey. We've seen a Tom King Superman. We've seen Bendis Superman. I'll say, and we've seen Tom Taylor deceased. We've seen Tom Taylor, son of Kal-El.
Ugh,
I'll
love
say
Tom Taylor.
the only one left I would say is Al Ewing. I would love to see what
Oh,
he would do with Superman.
that's a good tonal fit too. I feel like Al Ewing stuff is usually pretty fun and hopeful. The stuff I've
Yeah,
read. Yeah.
and he can go pretty intellectual like
Mm.
Morrison does, but
Mhm.
he's not he doesn't go so far out there that you don't understand it. Like some of Morrison's stuff. He
Mm.
he writes some pretty grounded um stuff. So I'll say Al Ewing. And well, Adam Hughes doesn't do interiors. You could never get him for like a 6-issue miniseries.
But this is our dream. We don't
Oh,
have to play
okay.
by the rules.
My dream would be a book written and illustrated by Adam Hughes. And if
Okay.
Adam Hughes can't do the whole thing, then I want Al Ewing.
You're like, "It's a dream world, anything can happen, but if for some reason in my hypothetical dream world, this can't happen."
Who's an artist that I just love? God, I love so many artists. Oh, you know who else would be good on a Superman book is Daniel Warren Johnson.
Mm.
Just to see Superman really metal.
I feel like he would have fit in a late 80s, early 90s Superman vibe for sure.
Yeah, who's somebody as a writer? We'll get to artists in a sec. Who's your dream world writer?
Well,
In this dream world, I'm getting served noodles by my noodle hating wife who brings down this big Herkin bowl of amazing from a Japanese restaurant of noodles with like an egg in it and greens.
Jess versus Meshy.
Yeah, I want all the meshy delivered to me by my noodle-hating wife in this dream world. I
Okay, so
love this dream world so far.
I mean, we're writing the rules. It's tough to say. I have a couple of options, but I think I'm landing on it. Maybe it's because I miss him already on Daredevil. But I'm gonna go Chip Zdarsky. Here's
Mm,
why. So I read his Spider-Man stuff. I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, but I was like, let me check this out, and it was fun. I gotta say, and it was like very back to the basics. So he knows how to do that. But just finishing his Daredevil stuff recently, so thematically rich. So like to me, Superman needs the combination of the two.
mm,
And so I would pick Zdarsky as far as a
mhm.
writer. I think he did write one of the world's finest issues, right? Or maybe very recently, like one of the crossed over with his Batman.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
read it, but I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
read that.
His writing on Batman is strong, really strong.
But we
He's
know he can write sad boys and we know he can write happy boys. So I think
sad
he's
boys,
perfect.
guys
Sad
who just
boys.
grab orphans off the street and make
Little,
them their wards.
little Catholic guilt boys. He can do it all. He can write any of them. And for art, because I miss her, I mean, I've seen, of course, the recent Saga stuff. I'm not fully caught up, but Fiona
Mm.
Staples,
Oh, that's a good
so her
choice.
stuff, I think about her stuff on Archie, and then I think about her stuff on Saga, and some combination of the two is like, that's Clark Kent, that's the Daily Planet, that's Metropolis to me. Like bright, but some detail, like warm. That's the sweet spot. So I would pick her
Yeah,
for art. Yeah.
that is a really good choice. Really good choice. Um, gosh, for art, I'm gonna want somebody who draws like you said, but something sharp. Like
Hmm.
as much as I have gotten used to and dig Riley Rossmo's art on Harley Quinn, that's not the kind of art I want for
Mm.
Superman. Well, if there's a lot of Lana Lang and Lois Lane in it, I'd like Terry Dodson
Oh, brother. Gee, I wonder why.
because of my cheesecake fetish. Oh gosh, Darwin Cook? Darn it, he would have been great.
Mm.
Mike Allred's already done it. I'm having a tougher.
Honestly, I don't know if you've read the current stuff, but Jamal Campbell's style, I think, is really good on Superman right now. I think that's perfect. I don't remember if he's Action Comics or that. I'm not ever caught up, but I know
Is
he's taken over, and I've seen some of that work, and it looks great. He's the guy who did Naomi. He also
oh
did a
oh
Far Sector. If you've read Far
oh
Sector,
oh yeah, I did read
yeah.
Far
Hmm.
Sector, and I did read Naomi. That's a good choice. I'm gonna go with my favorite Batman artist during Tom King's run, who drew Superman really well in it. And I'm gonna butcher his name, Mikel Yanin.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I won't be able to
That's
say it better. Hmm.
Yeah, that is who I want drawing it
It's a good one.
in my dream world. I'd love to see Jenny Frison do interior art, but she's so good. She does covers. Oh wait, what's that woman's name that's doing Scarlet Witch with Steve Orlando? It's not here. She's so good. She did that horrible Spider-Man story by Henry Abrams. Sarah Pacelli. She's great
Oh, okay,
too.
yeah, I see. Oh, that'd be a good one. Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, so this is a multi-part series with all our
Yeah.
favorite artists and all our favorite writers.
In our
So
dream world, we got
yeah,
many, many of Black Labels. We're living like we're Batman. He can have as many books as you want. So we're living in that reality.
yeah.
We can have as
And it's
many as we want.
and the name of it's going to be Earth One and Earth Two Jess presents Superman. And it's just this Herc Omni, 1,500
Yeah,
pages.
just
But
the
we won't
hits.
charge 150 for it. We'll charge 100 for it.
Benevolent.
Let's see. I think Doomsday Clock from Muhammad. I think Doomsday Clock and Three Jokers made me realize what Johns does, somehow making me see his older work with
Yeah.
much harsher views. Okay.
I actually could see that. In my opinion, I mean, I'm no like expert on almost anything, but I feel like what Johns does well is getting the characterization of something right, and he's really good when it's like, all right, we need this character to go back to the basics, or we're getting a
Mhm.
reset. Like, I think that's his sweet spot.
Yeah.
I think I totally agree. When I read those stories, it read to me like he's trying to get in his own head or even be something he's not. Like, I don't think you have to be someone who writes this comic that needs to be read 30 times to be understood. Like, it's
Mm.
great also to read a comic that's just super fun one time. Like, but you know what I mean? Like, maybe there's a level where people feel um there's a pretentiousness that some writers get to where they're trying to be too smart for their own good. And that's how I felt like those stories were a bit. And so I could
Which
see when I go
stories?
back, the
Which
ones that
story?
the Doomsday
Doomsday
Clock
Clock?
is one of them that I'm thinking of for sure.
I I reread Doomsday Clock, and I really loved it. The second
You loved
time
it.
I
Okay.
did. The first time, I think I was sort of middling. I was
That's how
mid
I
on
felt.
it. It was a
Mhm.
mid book, but,
It was
I
mid. You weren't dragging it,
yeah, I'm not
but it
dragging
was
it now,
mid.
but it was mid at the
Yeah.
time. Um, but then I read it a second time, uh, because I was gonna appear on another show. My friend Brian Brewster has, I actually it was an interview with Very Fine Condition that I crashed. They had it set up so that I could crash it and start
Mm,
trashing Very Fine Condition. But I think he and I both agreed that we like Doomsday Clock, and
hmm,
the more I read, I'm gonna get that in absolute form because I wanna read. I can't read what, Johns has written on the world. He builds a world, sort of like Lazarus, where there's um, things that you can read that add context to the story. You know, like
mhm,
newspapers
mhm.
and and emails and stuff. Um,
Mm,
but I can't read them in the deluxe or the um, standard hardcover. So I want to get the absolute so I can actually read what he has to say. But on my second reading of that, and I'm kind of eager to in 6 months to read it for a third time. I got much more out of it than
hmm.
I did the first time.
Okay. Maybe I'll give it another shot.
Yeah,
I
I
felt
mean,
mid too. I didn't like hate it, but it felt this is the word that came to mind when I was reading it. I'm remembering tedious. It's like this was
oh,
kind of tedious. And it's like
okay.
not I don't know if the end result matched the work that my brain was trying to do to get me there, which
Mm,
is why it felt mid. Like it didn't stick for me, but maybe if I rewatch it or reread it, sorry, it might be better this time around. We'll see. That's definitely happened with lots of books for me.
yeah. Well, I famously loved Identity Crisis the first time I read it, and then I reread it and I thought, "What the hell is this
I
book?
know that
I don't
story
even
is
want
wild
I don't even
when you
want this
think.
book in my house anymore. I got rid of it. I had that in
Oh wow.
absolute form, and I
Mhm.
said, "I'm not keeping this book. This is
Mhm.
a
It happens
weird
both
book."
ways, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to think of what I liked about it at first, but wow, on the second reread, yeesh.
Mhm.
Speaking of All-Star Soups, what did you think of Grant Morrison's run on Action? It gets a lot of hate, but I thought it was clever. Mark Miller said he has written a Superman book with DC. Um, a new one? I'd like to read that because I really loved Red Sun. Um,
I know, I really wanna talk about that one eventually. That's a great Elseworlds. I
yeah,
I
I
s
liked Grant Morrison's run
Mhm.
on Action. I have it in an omnibus. I I, I get the hate, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I don't ever want to feed into hate on the internet. Um, I I liked it enough that that I want to own it and reread it and keep it. I I wish what my wish was that Flashpoint would have left um Superman as a depowered kid,
Mm,
kept in the lead raised in the lead-lined vault, and had Grant Morrison get him released and shown how he could have grown into Superman
mm.
from that depowered, I assume do you know Flashpoint?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Flash
I
was,
know.
like, my first comics I ever read, even as a
Oh, okay.
kid. I that was the those were the only comics I picked up as a kid.
Mm,
They were at the I don't know what you call them now. I don't even know if they have them, but like a hobby shop. They sold Pogs. That dates me. That's
Oh,
the era I'm in.
Pogs.
Yeah, do you remember Pogs? Pogs and
There's a
Slammers?
there's a famous Simpsons episode where Milhouse goes, Alf's back in Pog form. So yeah,
Exactly.
I do remember those are originally from Hawaii, I think. And yeah, I do remember Pogs.
Yeah, so we never went. I didn't know what a comic book was, prior to that, but I used to pick them up because randomly the guy who owned that hobby shop that had like candies, Pogs, whatever, he also had a bunch of his old Wade, Wally West Flash singles for like a quarter, these like beat up ones. So I used to buy them. I had no idea what they were when I was a kid. I don't even try
Oh,
I read them all. I have
cool.
no distinct memory, but still to this day I've got like 90 some odd random single issues. And so yeah, Flash was the first character that I think I was like, oh, this is a comic book. And then he was also the first character I really followed concurrently with New 52 Flash when I started
Mm,
getting into reading frequently.
right.
So yeah, absolutely. But I was
Um,
looking up this era and I honestly have no strong memory of this era of Superman, if I'm honest with you. But was Morrison also writing on JLA at the same time, or was that
uh,
right before or right after? I was trying to place this
I
in my brain.
I feel like that. Uh, I feel like that JLA came before New
Before.
52
Oh, no,
because
before.
before
Oh, okay, okay,
Flashpoint,
okay.
because then the Justice League was written by Jeff Johns, and the first 9
Mm,
issues were illustrated by
yeah.
Jim Lee. So I feel like he had already written JLA
Mhm.
prior to that, and I, I I don't know. I had always wished it was something different, but for what it was, I thought it was fine.
Mm. I
And
remember feeling middling.
okay, one of my
Yeah.
favorite Superman, Kryptonite by Darwin Cook and Tim Sale. Ah, okay. Miller said he was hoping to be out in the next year or two, still finding a writer or artist.
Mm,
Okay. Catch a Predator. Haunting of Bly Manor was so good. Good.
mhm.
Your cool factor just went up. I love the Housewives shows, but I haven't watched Potomac yet. Oh, Mary, we can message back and forth about what I know about this particular
Wow.
housewife.
The
I got
inside scoop.
I can use some Gen Z slang here. I can spill about I can spill the tea about this particular housewife. Oh yeah. Oh yes, that sounds fantastic because you both love soups. Time to put Cycle Cleveland and time out. Superman Year One is clearly a 0. That was the one by J. Michael
Yeah.
Straczynski. I was okay with it. The minister, uh, to use your word, aggressively hated it.
Well, that's one of the year ones I haven't read, and then you told me that, and I was like, "All right, I don't have to read that." But I love the Green Lantern one, and I heard we were supposed to get a third and final, and we still have it, and I'm very worried we never will. Because that
Yeah,
was good. That was a
I
great story.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's so annoying.
Oh, I described noodles that Cycle Cleveland's excited about. Yeah,
Good.
noodles are my weakness too. They're like my kryptonite. I have to whenever we go to a restaurant, that's where I order spaghetti or noodles or something.
Mm. But there's a hot take about,
Oh, I see
yeah,
that. This
marinara,
may be a
yeah.
hot take, but tomato sauce is one of the worst ways to eat noodles, and Doctor Elevator
Wow.
agrees. Wow, that is a hot take. Wait, I think I have a there it is. Hot takes on noodles.
Controversial.
Controversial noodle. Um,
I think, yeah, I was gonna say there's noodles, that's what the cover is
yeah. Oh, you have that.
noodles and rice. Oh, yeah, Maddie gave this to me, Wonder Maddie gave this for me, my birthday. Uh, this one and the weird Joker one where Joker
Oh,
takes care of
he's raising
Batman as a
Kal-El
baby, which I
oh,
haven't read
Batman is
yet, but
yeah,
Kristen
that's
said is
right.
genuinely great, so we'll see.
Um, JLA was late 90s. Yeah, New 52 started in 2012. I remember that.
Hmm.
Morrison was doing Batman pre 52. Remember that. Miller's figuring out the artist. He wouldn't say who it is yet. Okay, good.
That makes more sense.
I thought that's super okay. I see. Oh, maybe we're okay. No, you're right. I made a mistake. It's Superman Earth One
Oh
with
yeah,
J.
they're the
Michael
Earth One books. They're right.
Straczynski.
Yeah.
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 Superman Year One. You're right. That was Frank Miller and J.R.R. I I aggressively avoided that.
The Superman one, not the Batman one.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
I was gonna say
Well, Batman Year One. Yeah, that's
You-
Frank Miller when it
no,
was
but
flat.
Batman Earth One you also really love, right?
I love that,
Yeah, it's
but
a
I
good one.
got it
Okay.
mixed up with Year One.
I know, too many.
Yeah.
Too many.
Batman Earth One, I love. Superman Earth One, I thought was okay. The Minister and I went through all these books. Um, let's see, what did I keep? I kept Wonder Woman, Superman.
Wonder Woman was good. I didn't love how it ended, but I thought it was good. I love the Yannick Paquette art on that.
Oh boy, yeah, that was great. What am I looking at here? Wonder Woman. Superman. It's upside down. Okay, and Green Lantern. Yeah. And I let go, shockingly, the Teen Titans Earth One by Jeff Lemire.
That was terrible. I mean,
it really was.
If someone watching loves it, like I'm glad, but I just really did not enjoy that book at all. No, I got it from the library, luckily, so didn't spend any money.
Yeah, I of course blind bought all of those, as I tend to do, but I did read them.
It happens.
Yeah, I did read them, so I'd like credit for that because there's so much I haven't read. Now this is an interesting take because I haven't read this yet. I loved Three Jokers. I have not read it yet. I do have a copy that was given to me, but I haven't read it yet. I'm kind of scared to read it, to be honest with you.
Well, you said earlier you were kind of over reading.
Well, I am done with the Joker, but somehow he keeps coming back, and now he's raising Batman.
People love that guy. They just love him.
Yeah. Jessica finds the image of Batman riding Superman as a horse. Wait, what?
I think that's Superman versus Meshy Volume 3 because I remember seeing that cover and I was like, "What?" It's not in this one. No, unless it is, and I haven't gotten to it. I'm halfway through this. It's really funny though. I think that's Volume 3. I saw it on IST the other day, so I think it's new.
I do wish I could read manga because it sounds fun.
Well, Jess, I didn't read. I'm not trying to pressure you. I truly.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter to me, but I also didn't read manga until this year. Really, I tried several times and it just didn't work. And then I really wanted to read My Brother's Husband, which is a great story, and it's like it's very self-contained. And I was like, I'm just gonna try, and I loved it, and I found a rhythm with it. I really liked it. And then I read Witch Hat Atelier, which is like a magical school kind of vibe, obviously. Very cozy, and loved it. So I've been reading more. It's still not like as easy to me as reading like a comic or a graphic novel. But I also never read them. And this year I started switching up a bit. And there's a lot of good stories out there. Yeah.
I'm genuinely glad you're enjoying it. It's hard for me to read, and what I have read,
me too. Yeah,
didn't hit for me for one reason or another. I've read a lot of it. I mean, ever since my channel started, 2017, people have been trying to get me to read it, and I've read it. It hasn't worked out.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Oh, I know that. Well, I'm not gonna. This must be pointed towards Earth One, Jess. I've heard a lot of good things about Azadora, and I really wish I could read Witch Hat Atelier because a magical school sounds awesome to me.
It's so good. Oh, I love that one. The art is amazing in that book. It's very high up, or I would pull it down. But I did read the first 2 volumes of Azadora, and I do really enjoy it, but I haven't finished yet. It wasn't one where I was like, I got to read them all, and I got to read it right now. But I'm sure I'll finish it up. I really like the art and the story in that book. Very heartwarming.
Dr. Elevator likes Three Jokers too. The people who hate seem to hate what it means for continuity, but I never care about that.
Same. I don't care about that.
I should just go ahead and read it. I don't have a problem. Teen Titans was such a disappointment. Came out in a time when Lemire was on fire too. I would argue he's still on fire for me. I
Mhm.
love that guy.
It was just
Uh,
not a good story, not a great characterization. A
yeah,
miss.
I'm so sorry if Silent Voice is a manga. I can't. My brain doesn't allow me to read manga properly. It's just too hard for me to read.
Hmm. Yeah, it is a
Uh,
manga, it looks like.
okay, Capullo drew Superman in Dark Knight's Metal and Death Metal. Do 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 do. Have you guys seen the Frank Miller Hulk cover? I haven't. Um, what did you read? I want to know what weird things people recommend to you to cause the aversion. Um,
Oh, your manga.
yeah, the manga thing. The first thing, MD, is that I I I I can't I my brain just has trouble adjusting to the reading style. I think my brain's just not as elastic as it used to be. If I was in my 20s or 30s, I could probably make the switch.
Mm.
But it's physically hard for me to read it and understand it. For some reason, Junji Ito's books I can follow easier. Um, I've actually read and enjoyed a lot of Ito. I will cop to that. I have read and enjoyed a lot of Ito. Kristen and I even reviewed, I think, Dissolving Classroom, which we each
Mm.
got for $4 on Amazon. And there's a scene in there that I have told Kristen many times that almost made me throw up in
Oh
Dissolving
my gosh.
Classroom. Yeah. Ito, but he can he can draw the grossest stuff, which I dig. It's fine. I
Mhm.
don't mind being grossed out. But wow, there was one scene. Um, uh, the other
It's
so I have trouble reading it in the first part. I've actually read a lot. I read the first two books of Monster. I read there was a whole thing in the back when the community was really strong in Riley's Facebook page, the Omnibus Collectors Facebook page. When it was really going, there was a manga subsection. I
mm.
forget what it was called, but they had a whole, and Kristen was in on this. They had a whole discussion on what to try to get me to read to
Mm.
make me love manga. Is Kelly here yet? Oh, I'm being chastised. I'm being chastised. I'm so sorry. I have to get off. Um, so yeah, and they ended up picking Berserk for me, and
Oh.
I went through that, and it just wasn't my thing. And then also the one that's written in Western style, Blade of the Immortal,
Mm.
and I read that. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with manga. I don't say anything bad about it. I love that it's out there and people are into it, but it's just I just can't read it.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and you don't wanna, like, force your brain, but I am glad you've given it a go, and that's all you can really do.
Yeah. Now, do you have any social media you'd like to promote here, or
I'm
you're
not that entertaining, I wouldn't say, but I will say Kristen and I, at the Comic Slayers channel next Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern is our finale of Fall Into Reading. Then we'll have a
mm,
break. And we are going to be talking about Messy Roots by Laura Gao and also El Defo by, that one's the one I haven't read yet. We kind of are doing CC Bell, and then Messy Roots is up there. So we'll be talking about those two if anyone wants to come by. We do have a non-spoilery section. But yeah, that'll be next Sunday at 1. But I don't have that interesting of a social media, I won't say. But
well,
I've
okay,
loved
but
spending time with you today.
I did too. This was great to talk to another Superman fan about my favorite character. So peace and love. Thank you to the chat. You were really great. Thank you to everybody that's watching this
Yeah,
afterwards.
absolutely.
Peace and love to my wife, who's actually angry right now. So I gotta go. And thank you to let's see, put up organic price books. And it seems like my daughter's here, so I have stuff to do. So peace and love, peace and love. I'm going to use my song to play us out, but there will be more of these Superman episodes whenever we can fit them into Jess, Earth One Jess's busy schedule when I borrow her from Kristen's channel. Thank you, Jess. This was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and I really dug it.
I really enjoyed it too. And thanks everyone in the chat for sure. Hope you have a good week.
Peace and love.